Welcome back to FPL Therapy, the weekly podcast hosted by me, FPL Raptor, where each week we are joined by a different guest. And I'm delighted to say that for Double GW24, we have international cricketer Brad Currie, also known to some of you as FPL Schofield on Twitter. If you want to know a little bit about who Brad is, and I'm sure we'll love this, all you need to do is go onto YouTube. And so how many people have said this to you?
Probably too many. Yeah,
go onto YouTube, type in Brad Currie catch. And to be honest, once you type in Brad C, it will probably come up as one of the main recommendations. One of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in sport, to be honest. It was absolutely unbelievable. But so not only a supremely talented cricketer, but also a proper FPL nerd. I think you'd have to say that. So Brad, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me on here. I think Bradley Cooper's just caught a stray on FPL Therapy, which is great.
That's true, yeah.
But no, it's brilliant to be here. First in-studio podcast and first time I've actually met someone properly from the FPL community, and I'm glad it's you. So there we go.
We exist in real life.
Yeah, I know, it's mental.
We're not just nerds talking through a computer, so we actually exist in real life. But yeah, so I mean, we're going to discuss so much today. As people can see by the shirt that you're wearing, a ridiculously big Bournemouth fan, and not one of those, it's just a fan, like, you know the club inside out, which is fantastic because not only have you just won 5-0, but you're also going into a brilliant fixture run. So we'll talk Bournemouth, we'll talk double game weeks, we'll talk the assistant manager chip. This is honestly going to be a packed podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, can I please ask you to subscribe? I'm trying to hit 15,000 subscribers before the end of the season, and I can only do that with your support. Drop a like on the video as well. And if you're listening on audio, please do rate 5-star. You can do that on Apple or Spotify, and it really does help. Before we do any of that, before we even go through your team, can you just introduce like you as a manager? How long have you been playing? What's your general style? Like, how have you done previously? Any decent ranks? Are you more someone that plays on vibes? Like, how do you approach the game?
I'm very much like fixture based. I love like the green fixture kind of runs and stuff. I'm a bit of a sucker for that. I would say I've had 2 proper years at it. Going back 3 years, I sort of did it halfway through, half-hearted kind of thing. So I think it was around 100k that year that didn't really give it a full go. The last 2 years have done ridiculously well, and I've now appreciated it a lot more this year. I was 1020th and then 1.8k last year. So that 3-figure rank is eluded me at the moment, but this year won't be that year unless something remarkable happens. But yeah, always fixtures, and I love to plan ahead. So hopefully can sort of help a little bit with the viewers today. I
don't think there are many people in the history of FPL that can say back-to-back top 2k finishes. So as much as you might not have got that 3-digit rank, I think back-to-back 2-digit ranks is pretty impressive. And I love it because people always tweet stuff on Twitter and social media, and it's always like really interesting. And there are proper nerds, the likes of Praz and stuff like that. But exactly. But when you tweet stuff, I just love the thought process. Right, we're in like game week 6, and you'll be like, taking into account the game week 29 blank. Like, there's always and I love that because that's me as well. Like, I'm always overthinking and really trying to strategize. So today, I know that we'll have a good chat around future sort of fixtures, blanks, doubles, chips, and stuff like that. But just to know that as much as he is an athlete and a cricketer, he's also a proper FPL nerd. So I guess a good starting position would just be to go through our teams from game week 23. You've had an absolute flyer. I used to think FPL Therapy was a curse. When people came on, they used to be really bad. But recently, when I've invited guests on, they've been doing really well. So you actually got 75 points in game week 23. So to read out your team for those on audio, it was Verbruggen in goal, who didn't actually pick up, but then most goalkeepers pretty much stunk it up. The defense did pretty well. Trent assist, Gabriel clean sheet, and Anderson 2-pointer. Anderson's
touchy subject, Ross.
We'll discuss this in a second. But Anderson's header obviously cleared off the line by Toby Collier. Midfield did it for you though. Salah obviously getting the return, Gordon assist, and Burmo scoring the second penalty, and then a Palmer blank. But it was really that front line. Obviously, Cody Gakpo coming in clutch for you, Isaac and João Pedro. The bench, Sanchez didn't do anything. Sarr didn't do anything. Williams didn't do anything. And then a 15-pointer from Lissandro Martinez on the bench. So talk us through your team, sort of how it's gone this season. So that puts you at a rank just inside the top 300k. So as you say, it hasn't been your strongest season yet, but that's still not a bad position to be in at this point with most of your chips left. In fact, all of your chips left.
Yeah, all the chips left. It feels like I got to like 199k like weeks ago, and I thought, let's press on, get to 100k, and then we'll chase that top 10k. But I just had like 3-4 red arrows in a row, mainly Chris Wood. So a lot to say about that, man. But it's been like a real topsy-turvy year, but in a way it's been enjoyable, but there's definitely been a lot more lows than previous years. But I feel like the team's in a decent place. I have been I wildcarded slightly later than most in week 12.
Yep.
And then I haven't really built up transfers as much. I'm seeing other managers higher ranked, like with 4 free transfers. And they've just been so much more flexible. So I think that's my learning curve going forward into next year. But I think there's still plenty of time left. And as you say, all the chips. So here's to hopefully get somewhere near 10K.
I have a feeling that something could turn your season around. And it might
Starting Martinez.
or some Bournemouth players. There appears to be a bit of an absence at the moment of Bournemouth. So like many people, you're choosing afresh this week, probably potentially going into next week. So we are absolutely going to get your opinion on that, especially I think with Ismail Assar sat there on your bench.
He's stinking it up.
He's been really disappointing.
Sanchez, they're all stinking it up. I could honestly get 5 Bournemouth players if it was allowed.
I feel the Sanchez pain. I sold Sanchez this week. But
you're even more in pain now than me.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't go particularly well for me. So I had a bit of a stinking week in all honesty, but based on how last week went, it was one of the luckiest weeks I've ever had in FPL. This was slightly unlucky, but also my team didn't look that fantastic. So it was 57 points. I brought in Alisson for Sanchez. So I had 2 options. It was Sanchez to Alisson and only use 1 transfer, or Sanchez to Pickford and Wood to Gakpo and use 2 transfers. And I asked lots of people, because normally I'm quite confident in my decision making. I don't really ask for advice, but I was asking lots of people, like, what would you do? And categorically, everyone was like, just do Sanchez to Alisson. You're overthinking it. Don't overthink it. Don't make the 2 transfers. Alisson's fine. And I thought about it and I was like, yeah, do you know what? Gakpo has got a great fixture ahead. He's got the upside, but Alisson is a really solid option. And Fabianski can cover Alisson in blank game week 29 if Alisson does blank. So not only did Pickford keep a clean sheet and Alisson concede, Gakpo gets a 16-pointer. So that's already a 17-point swing for me. And obviously Chris Wood blanked. But then Fabianski loses his place. So now I am not only 17 points down, I'm also got probably a goalkeeper down in 29. So that might go down as one of the worst outcomes in what felt like a 50-50. Now, but I think a lot of people would have said beforehand, and I get this, like Gakpo had the higher ceiling. He did for the Ipswich game.
But 16 points, that's his highest return this year, I think.
Exactly.
By far.
And for Chris Wood and Alisson to blank, Alisson to concede right in the final moments, it was a bigger swing than I think was probably deserved, but that's what I get for being a little bit more conservative. And I think keeping Chris Wood and only making 1 transfer was the conservative play. And this is obviously my advice to you guys listening and watching is maybe don't always be conservative. Like those that kept Chris Wood this week and didn't go to Gakpo, well, they're obviously 14 points down. You feel like that's been deserved.
There's been like mini league rivals who had Solanke or maybe like mid-price striking. It just made so much more sense to move from them onto Gakpo. But watching your videos with your team, it was like, well, it makes so much sense. And I was looking at Alisson, but I then realised I could get Pickford this week, but it does mean slightly cheaper striker. So, but yeah, now I'm tripled up and double attack. So I'm laughing at your expense.
It's very easy in hindsight, but something I would say to those that brought in Alisson right now and are thinking, I regret it, should I move? You didn't bring in Alisson. Like Alisson was never going to get 16 points against Ipswich. Gakpo had that ability. So you didn't bring in Alisson to attack the upside. You brought him in as a long-term option. So he could still conceivably outscore Gakpo between now and 28 if he keeps a couple of clean sheets and Gakpo doesn't get the return. So it's unlikely now, but you didn't bring in Alisson. I don't think expect him to outscore Gakpo this week. So that would be my advice if you did bring him in and you're frustrated. But yeah, outside of that, my defense actually did well. Trent and Munoz with the assists. Gabriel obviously got the clean sheet. Midfield was pretty awful. Salah, Fernandes, Palmer, Rodgers, 3 of them blanking. We'll discuss Rodgers because I was at Villa Park and that was bloody awful, that performance from Villa. And then my front line was pretty terrible. Again, Isak, the only one returns, Wood and Mateta blanking. They're complete polar opposite weeks. Last week, every player returned, and this week, pretty much every player blanked. But still inside the top 200k, in a pretty decent position. I would say, depending on how your triple captain goes, we're basically about the same this season.
Yeah,
because I've obviously
15 points.
Exactly, just over 15. So if Salah outscores that, then you're just ahead of me. But I've already played my triple captain. So let's say we're about the same point this season.
I'll take that.
Which is nice. Cool. So that's how our teams got on. Obviously, Brad off the back of a big green, and hopefully that continues this week. Before we discuss Bournemouth, because that is the first game that we're going to discuss, and also Liverpool and Everton assets, the assistant managership's obviously live now for double game week 24. And what FPL have done is they've made it so that you can see the scores from the managers in game week 23. I would say that that's very nice of them to do, but I think it was for them to kind of test that their coding actually worked. But yeah, you can now see the scores. It will be on your screen if you're watching on YouTube from game week 23. I just want to say a very important thing. Some people on Twitter thought this was an obvious one. I would love to know if you thought it was obvious in the ruling, but I
the
imagined
free transfer thing.
So I imagined when you activated the assistant manager chip. So let's say I activate it for 24 now. I imagined that you could change the assistant manager chip unlimited times up till the first deadline. A bit like when you change your triple captain if you've activated it, or on a free hit or a wild card.
Yeah.
But if you activate your triple captain now and you just randomly chose Maresca just as a joke to put, if you then wanted to then change that to slot this week, you would then have to use a transfer.
Yeah.
And then if you was actually like, I don't want to use it on slot, I want to use it on Moyes, that's another transfer. So they are treating it as a transfer for a player. And if you do read the rules, it's kind of like, yeah, I kind of see that, but I also think it's not clear. So what I would say is if you're going to activate it, leave it last minute
10 minutes before
and make sure that you are absolutely confident. Because let's say you've activated it on slot and now Salah gets
pulls
injured.
a hammy in training.
Slot pulls his hamstrings out.
Stuck in the stands.
Like Salah gets injured, Trent gets injured, Van Dijk gets injured. It wouldn't happen. But then you'd say, well, I probably don't want to play it on slot. And then all of a sudden you'd have to use another transfer. And also do remember that it's for 3 consecutive weeks. So if you use it now, you're not just using it for 24, you're using it for 24, 25, 26. With all of that in mind, I'll read this out for those on audio. Here are the points from the managers in game week 23. So Moyes with a 19-pointer, which is crazy. Obviously getting the 16, I think it is for the win because of the 5-place table bonus. So they were 5 places lower than Brighton. Clean sheet, the goal. So he gets 19 points, Moyes, in 23. Iraola, of course, 13 points. Didn't get the table bonus. But obviously getting the 5 goals, the clean sheet, that was a big score. Slot got 10 points for the 4-1 win. Then it was Amorim with 9 points, Arteta with 9 points, Guardiola with 9, Howe with 9, and also Potter with 9. So Potter for a 1-1 draw got 1 point less than Arne Slot for a 4-1 win. And this comes back to this table bonus idea. If a manager gets a win and there's no table bonus, you get 6 points. And if they get a draw with the table bonus, it's 8. So you actually get more points for a manager drawing if you get the table bonus than a team that are winning that are obviously the favourites in that game. And then obviously it goes on from there. I guess the first thing to note, how do you feel about the table bonus for the assistant manager chip? Are you thinking early thoughts that you're going to go after that table bonus and try and back the underdogs? Or are you thinking I'll play on slot, Arteta, and just bank the points?
I think it's actually really tricky to get it available at a table bonus. I've been looking at there's 3 main windows for the assistant managers, 24 to 26, 31 to 33, and 36 to 38.
Yeah.
They're so tricky. Like I had Palace versus Brighton bookmarked for 31, and now Palace are 4 places behind, looking like they're going to go up, and Brighton look pretty stinky.
Yeah.
And so that gap's like it's going to be shut, and so that's probably not an option. The other one was Emery in 31 as well, home to Forest. Forest have got 5 stinky fixtures now. I mean, Villa are hit and miss anyway with Europe, but it's really hard to find those opportunities. But we're definitely going to get random weeks like Moyes going and getting 19 points. Like you can say, oh yeah, well, that makes, it's great to go and chase the 19 points, but who actually was playing on Moyes in this week? Like no one. I know some accounts tweet and they're like, oh, who are you going to pick? And but Moyes was like under 5%.
Yeah,
definitely. So I do want to chase it, partially because of my rank as well, but those opportunities are pretty hard to get. So, and then obviously the double game weeks will almost choose themselves, really. Like 24, you're not going to play it on anyone other than Moyes or Slot, realistically.
Exactly.
So
I guess it's about like, do you want to risk? Because the thing is with this chip, if you play it safely, you're not guaranteed 30 points, but it's like you do badly to not get 30 if you were playing it on the likes of Slot, Arteta, etc. So if you play it safe, you're banking yourself a really good amount of points. But if you play it risky and get 0 from a chip that other people are getting a floor of like 30, 40 points from, that's a disaster.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can go and chase that 70, 80. It's classic risk reward.
Yeah.
There are managers out there that are really safe, really conservative. Like, you're giving me basically a free 30, 40 points.
Harry's
so I'll take
on
it.
Slot 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I was going to say Praz and Harry, but I didn't want to insult the
Dig
parent.
him out. Keep digging him out.
FPL Harry, we're calling you out. But there are definitely managers out there that are just, they won't want to take that risk. Because as I say, losing 40 points to the field, which let's say is about that is a massive amount of points. So I don't know where I stand right now. As you said, not only is it very unpredictable when obviously if a team's 5 places below the other team, they are less likely to probably win that game in most situations. But trying to plan when that's going to be is a nightmare. For us who love planning, we're like, oh, in 31, this, and then like 2 weeks later, right, we've got no idea if they're going to be 5 places. So I guess for me, what I would say, we spoke about 33 and 36. They're the 2 big double games, the bigger double games this season. Maybe just pencil it in. I'm going to play it then and just forget. Right, don't try and plan which teams are going to be. And I think if an option arises around those weeks. Let's say that Glasner at that point is 5 places lower than like Nottingham Forest. And he's got that fixture. And you go, oh, actually, based on form, I'll do it. And if it doesn't, well, then just back the favourites. I think that's the way I plan at the moment. But I would like, in an ideal situation, I think I'd like 1 or 2 games for a favourite and then 1 or 2 games for an underdog. And so basically, I back the underdog. If they go big, great. And if not, I can fall back on like 15, 20 points for one of the favourite teams. I should note, just because you're backing a favourite doesn't mean they'll win.
No, there is that.
Let's say you back slot this week. They could lose to Bournemouth and draw against Everton.
Well, Arsenal with a red card. They could have easily, I know they won,
they could have drew that to
Wolves. And you're like,
exactly.
Albeit slot was your banker this week, I guess. But yeah.
Exactly. But then even like we're saying their slot got you 10. Right, Moyes got 19. Graham Potter got 9 for a terrible 1-1 draw against Aston Villa.
It was a bad watch.
It was a bad watch.
Just quietly, Van Nistelrooy going to Tottenham and winning and not getting a table bonus. How bad are Spurs?
That's what I looked at.
I was remarkable. Like, I thought it would be higher. And I was like, he didn't get a bonus, did he?
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. I was like, 8 points?
Like, what? He went to Spurs with Leicester. And then Iraola, if Forest... I think they were level on goal difference with Arsenal.
So they were 1 place higher.
So if they were 1 place higher in second, we were 7th. Areola would have got like
over
24 points.
Yeah,
crazy. Ridiculous. Like that would have been mental. But yeah.
I do think the teams we are going to be targeting are the likes of Forest, where you aren't traditionally expecting them to be an elite side, but they are quite high up. And I think Spurs are going to be perfect to target in terms of playing it on whoever the manager is. If it's Postecoglou, and it sounds like they're backing him for the foreseeable future, great, that's fine. But otherwise, if a new manager comes in, it's going to be the perfect position. And Amorim as well. You would expect at some point
he's got some options
that United might improve. And if so, and they've got a game against, I don't know, someone like a Nottingham Forest.
31.
Hey, I like the sound of that. But yeah, I think basically you need to decide what sort of manager you are, but also don't plan too much ahead.
Yeah.
In terms of game week 24, if you were going to play it, slot Moyes, which way would you lean? If for people that have already decided they want to play it, which way would you go?
I genuinely think Moyes is the go, because I think Everton do beat Leicester. And I genuinely think Bournemouth will get a point against Liverpool. Hear me out. We'll come back to this. But no, I just think the games for slot are tricky.
They're not bankers.
No, they're not at all. They could go and win 2 and you'd be like, it was the obvious choice. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's 1 draw, 1 win, 2 draws, or even if the Cherries could go and do it, beating Arsenal, beating City, beating United, Tottenham, Chelsea. No, not beating Chelsea. Should have.
But this is if you're not going to get the table bonus, you're going after lots of goals and a clean sheet.
Yeah.
They're not going to, you wouldn't imagine, get lots of goals and definitely at least 1 clean sheet against those 2 teams. So yeah, for me, it's not a great game to play this system manager. At the same time, if you've activated it, absolutely Liverpool could go and win both games 2-0. And
I'm sure that those that will or were looking to activate it didn't or don't have their TC. So, mine maybe not might take the hit that sort of this week.
Exactly.
Take your red arrow on the chin, lose behind sort of Salah triple captainers, but then back end of the year, you'll be on a level playing field with everyone, i.e. me versus you this week kind of thing.
I would absolutely agree. And if you're someone that's listening to this now and thinking, I really couldn't care less about the assistant managership, it's sort of doing my head in, I don't really fully understand it. There is a double game week in 36, just play it in 36, 37, 38.
Easy.
And you can just forget about it now for a few months. And around game week 36, I'll upload a video and I'll tell you who to pick for the final 3 games. And that's a fine strategy as well. Exactly. Follow and subscribe. But that is the plan at the moment for me is, do you know what? I think I'm just going to play in 36. That's the plan. And if an opportunity arises earlier, I'll do it.
Go for it. Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. Right. This is when we get into the juicy stuff. So the rest of the podcast, by the way, it's very cold in here. So if you can see, this is a plug to come over onto YouTube. If you want to go over to YouTube and you can see my nipples on the podcast, they're going to be so confused.
Ross
if you want to
see starting an OnlyFans.
If you want to see my Alphonse Areolas, then you can come over onto YouTube. But anyway, moving on swiftly to the games from game week 23 with an eye to sort of looking ahead into 24. The first game of the game week, Bournemouth 5. Nottingham Forest 0. So we're going to try not to get overly excited here. And we're going to try and do this in the most structured way possible. So as I said, Brad is a massive Bournemouth fan. So first thing I want to do before we discuss the big things like which midfielders go for is discuss the Bournemouth Forest game. So you were lucky enough to have tickets for that game. You watched it live. I didn't get to see anything beyond the highlights. So I'll let you take the lead. What happened in this game? Was it a deserved win? And how did the overall game go?
So the first half, I can't believe the Clive goal. He genuinely picks it up in our own third and just drives and drives and drives. My brother made a great point as we left the stadium. Bloke's just come off a hat trick and Murillo, Milenkovic just literally sat back and like, shoot if you want, mate. Of course he's going to shoot. He took the opportunity. Sales was sort of blinded a little bit, and it was almost a carbon copy finish to the Newcastle goal. So that was a great start, and Iraola spoke about the importance of the first goal against Forest because we know they can sit in a low block and they're comfortable with that. So that was really important. And then the rest of the first half was a little bit cagey. Elanga looked promising. I would say he was their only sort of shining light. Didn't know Wood was playing. Gibbs-White was meh. He was average, couple of shots, but nothing really to shout about. Jota, he did my head in, but yeah, he was average. And then, yeah, sort of Bournemouth had their own few chances first half, but largely the first half was not null and void, but we did the right thing getting the first goal, and that was that. Second half, we came out with, like, on rocket fuel again. We always tend to start halves well. And we got those 3 goals between 55 and 60. It was carnage. Obviously, one was disallowed, but they just looked electric. And we went to 2-0. The climb from Dango, by the way, I don't know if you saw my post. It's Ronaldo-esque versus Sampdoria. So
athlete.
Honestly, he's got springs in his Achilles. Like, he will go back and defend corners, and you'll see like Howson as well. But Dango would just be the one getting all the headers.
He's not the tallest player in the world.
He's like 5'11", but like genuinely his leap is unbelievable. So when we get on to talking about him as a 9, he's got that to him. But yeah, second half was unbelievable. We looked far more energetic than them. Once we got the second, it was dangerous scoreline 2-0, but then we had the disallowed goal, which was an unbelievable goal, by the way. The football and the footwork from Kluivert was amazing. It was a shame that Dango doesn't really know the offside rule at the moment. He's kind of like the Jackson Darwin mould.
When you put like a winger or a midfielder up front, you realise that actually playing the offside is quite difficult. But yeah.
We've also put him at left back as well. So how he's tried to play like an offside trap from left back, and now he's trying to do the reverse of staying on side. But that's Dango. We a couple of weeks ago did to sort of describe him as a hand grenade. You don't know, like you could get Messi, you could get like a Darwin, but who knows? But now he's on Messi form. But anyways, we got the third goal, and Forest looked pretty depleted from there. They actually changed eventually to a 5-back. I know they took Jota off, but they had Aina and Moreno then playing in a 5-back. It did nothing. They looked depleted of legs in midfield. I think Yates is like walking back for the 4th goal, and we just had so much more energy than them. We suffocated them. It was organised chaos, as Iraola describes it. And then the 4th and 5th were fully justified. The Forest fans that didn't have their tinted glasses on, a couple of them did some interviews with like some content creators and saying, look, fair enough, hands down, deserved 5-0 and genuinely could have been 6. Not going to say 7, but it was just a fantastic performance from Bournemouth. So
perfect. So I like that there's no bias in there.
I had a great view from the corner flag.
Okay, so I'm going to come in with the big question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so everyone's looking at a Bournemouth midfielder right now. You've got Dango Ouattara at 5 million, Kluivert 5.7, Semenyo 5.6.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there is a big gap then between Dango and Kluivert and Semenyo. Yeah. Let's say at first, people can afford any of them.
Yeah, should be able to as well.
Talk to us about who you would go for, and is it clear cut?
It's not clear cut at all. It really isn't. I genuinely, over the 5-week period, you like to think there'll be sort of semi-equal,
and they have been over the last 5 or 6.
I saw Focal or Oscar posted a picture of it all, and they were within 7 or 8 points of each other. Obviously, that's Dango's only moved to number 9 since the Chelsea games. That's 3 game weeks of info from him there. If you force me into it, I would just go Kluivert, purely for the pens. I know you love a penalty taker.
I do love a penalty taker.
It's going to be your favourite. But yeah, Kluivert, I feel like he's trying to take on like the mold of our talisman now. We've never really like had that. We are a team. So yeah, sort of if I was pushed like guns ahead, Kluivert, I think Dango versus Semenyo is really interesting. First 80 minutes, Semenyo was very wide, and you didn't feel like if we were going to keep scoring, he was going to get his opportunity, but he is 90 minutes. He is definitely nailed. And he's like, Mr. Consistent. People are going to look back to Dango's hat-trick, 20 points. Kluivert's hat-trick and assist, 23 points. And they go, like, you even tweeted it, when's it Semenyo's turn? And we're like, I don't know if Semenyo's got that in him to go like that explosive. And I genuinely do think, we've seen it from Kluivert with his hat-trick of penalties. I don't think Semenyo's got that high a ceiling. But then you look at it, last 7 game weeks, he's had 6 returns. There's 3 goals, 3 assists. And so people will probably sweep him under the radar a little bit because of that. And I put in my notes, I said, if you said to me, one of the 3 get a return a game week, I would say that's Semenyo. If you said one of them's getting 2 double-digit hauls, then I'm saying it's Kluivert or Dango. So again, might depend on where your appetite is, but I think Kluivert does just take the gold medal. But if you really want to go out there, or funds that 0.6 is sort of tricky for you, just get Dango.
So I'll add some stats to what you've just said there, just because obviously I don't watch Bournemouth anywhere near enough, but I was looking into it. And so Dango Ouattara has had 6 big chances in the last 6 games. And bear in mind that, as you say, only 3 of those has been as the 9. Yeah. And so most of those have come in the last 3 games. And he's also accumulated 2.48 non-penalty expected goals. That sounds like a lot, and it is. And then you put into perspective Kluivert and Semenyo's, which is 1.15 and 1.6. So he's got over double the goal threat from open play of Kluivert.
He was also very quiet against Chelsea. It was kind of like, still pretty new to me. So.
Exactly. So he can clearly accumulate much bigger, greater chances than the other 2 on a consistent basis in his current role. So let's say that someone can't afford Kluivert or Semenyo with 1 transfer. Let's say they've got an Enzo or a Wobie or something, and they need to they can only go to Dango Ouattara. Would you advise that they just take that opportunity? Or would you advise they use a second, let's say even a free transfer, to make another downgrade elsewhere to just get up to Kluivert for the Pens?
Obviously, it is going to be really team dependent, but I genuinely, if it is that much of an issue, just go for Dango. I do think he is pretty nailed. The good thing with Dango is when he starts, he does tend to play like 85 plus. The last 3 games, I think he stayed on the pitch for all 90. And then look at his returns on the FPL site. You'll see a goal and assist against Fulham from the bench. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's another game where he returns from the bench. And so he does have that in him to a 20-minute cameo to do so.
Goal and assist against Ipswich off the bench.
There you go. So I should have remembered that because it was there. But yeah, so he does have that in him to do so. So if you are slightly worried about minutes, well, he is one of those players that can return from the bench. He doesn't need that long. He's shown that explosivity. But also, aside from FPL, he started in the FA Cup game against West Brom and scored 2 goals up front. And that was the first game that he played in the 9. So he's gone 2 goals against West Brom, blank against Chelsea, but Chelsea away, probably would have benched him anyway. Newcastle, he only got the assist, but he did score, but it was offside. Again, I think it was a Kluivert assist. I can't remember, don't quote me, but he did score against Newcastle in a way. And then he had another assist chalked off in the Forest game, would have been a Kluivert goal. So there are 2 returns you're not seeing against West Brom in the FA Cup, and there are 2 returns because he doesn't know the offside rule yet, but he's getting there. We love him for it. So
yeah, I definitely think in terms of chance accumulation, he's going to be much higher than the other 2, but Kluivert is a ball striker, right? That's the thing. Like, this is the thing where I'll say data's better for Dango, but if you've put them in the same position, Kluivert's finishing a much higher percentage of those shots.
The thing with Dango as well is he's pretty one-footed. So that you'll see the second goal falls nicely on his left side channel, and it's just that ball across the goal for Sales. It's hard to get to. And then the third is a mistake from Sales, but you've got to be there. And as the 9, you are the likely person to be there. I think interestingly as well, just on Dango, we took Brooks off at late 70 minutes, something like that. And it seemed to me from where I was watching that Dango moved out to the right wing. Tavernier played in the 10, which we've done quite a lot this year, and Kluivert actually moved to the 9. Now, I think that's mainly due to the fact that Kluivert's stamina isn't as good, and so we probably just shoved him up front just to, take a bit more of a chill pill. And Dango does have it in him to run back for all 90, even though the game was done at this point. So that's just something to keep an eye on. But Dango does have 3 positions across that front 4 that he can play. And if Kluivert is trusted in the 9, then obviously it makes him even better. The one thing I will add is our second penalty taker is something that might sort of sway people towards Semenyo.
I think he would be second.
It's so tricky. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if Howson rocks up and goes, "I've got this." Man. He is a player. But Kluivert starting with Tavernier back, maybe Kluivert comes off in 75, 80. Hopefully the damage is already done, but it does open up the opportunity for someone like Semenyo to maybe get a last 10-minute penalty because he will be on the pitch. I don't know who else would be stepping it up. I really don't know.
So in terms of starts, do you feel like they're all pretty secure over the next like 6 to 8? And if one was, I know you've just said Kluivert might get the earlier sub, but if one was going to kind of miss a game or not start, Semenyo is probably the safest, I would imagine. But out of Kluivert versus Dango, would you say that one's slightly safer? Obviously, I know we're putting you on the spot massively, but
I genuinely think it's really tricky. Iraola's, I don't know, he is quite unpredictable. I do think for the next 2 to 3 weeks, Tavernier is going to be sort of slowly pushed back into team, so he won't start. And then, of course, like, we're not going to mention him from an FPL point of view because he's not that guy, but Brooks has been playing really, really well, and we are seeing the David Brooks, not of old, but pre-cancer treatment and all of that. And he's looking really good. But he's like a facilitator. So I think him and Tavernier share similar roles. So if Brooks and Tavernier start together, the two of Kluivert and Semenyo will feast. They will be sort of there to provide for them. So, but going back to starts, I do think Kluivert has a little bit more of a chance with minutes, but then the number 9 role, if that is just seen as Dango's role, then it could be him. So those two are quite hard to call for minutes. Again, gun to the head, probably Kluivert edges it, but Semenyo is definitely the safest option for 90 minutes.
And the only other question then on that is, there are rumours that you might be trying to sign someone on loan. Do you think that's likely at the moment?
We were linked with Ferguson from Brighton. He was supposedly injured, and then back in mid-Feb, he's risen from the dead and apparently he's fine. So there are clubs back in for him, but I don't think we will. There's some fans and I wouldn't mind it just for a bit of strength and depth, but I don't see us doing it. There was a Madger as well from West Brom. I don't see us doing it. It's tricky. They were quite tight-lipped on the recovery times of players. I don't think Sinistera is that far off, and obviously now we've got Tavernier back. So I don't know. I mean, it might be chatting absolute rubbish there, but obviously we've got Tav back now. So I do think they're pretty safe. But yeah.
Okay. And do any of them take set pieces?
Kluivert was taking in-swinging corners at the weekend. We looked quite dangerous. Obviously, we've got a beanpole in there like Howson. So we do score the occasional corner. Sometimes we'll play it short into like a short man, and then Kluivert will get it back and then cross it in. So Kluivert has that added appeal. I don't think we got a corner from the right-hand side for a left footer swinging it in. It's been anyone. Like even Cook takes them sometimes, Christie. Okay. So the right side is a little bit hard to say, but Kluivert tends to get the left side of corners.
Okay, that's all been very useful. So I'm going to ask very explicitly, with their price taken into account, how would you rank the 3 if you were pushed to go 1, 2, 3 right now?
I think I will go Kluivert first. I think his ownership, I mean, they're all low. They're like 5% and 3% both. But I think Kluivert's ownership will naturally take a higher boost. Not saying the FPL noobs out there, but you will log on and just see, Kluivert's 4th best midfielder. In he goes. Yeah. So I think price rises as well included. I mean, shouldn't buy players because they go up necessarily, but it helps. So I think Kluivert will be the one that I will go to. Obviously, I'm not looking to do it this week, so we will get another week of information. So I might post a thread if people are lucky, but I might just pass it on to someone and say, look, I still think Kluivert's best. If you are that manager that does want to roll a dice, I do like Dango as a spicy pick. If you just want someone to tick along, a bit like sort of Gordon has done recently, Semenyo is your guy. If you're going to be happy enough with secure minutes, then go for Semenyo. He won't be benched. He can play right wing, play left wing. We do move him centrally at the end of games, but it's really hard to call between Dango and Semenyo. Okay. So
cool. Well, my ranking before we started was Kluivert, Dango, Semenyo. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah. I might end up, because of the ownership, going Dango. So because of the point that you made that Kluivert's going to keep going up, I might just save the money, back the player that is getting a silly number of chances.
You're also a bit dumb and went for Enzo, no offense. So you're stuck at the 5. I know you got probably some money in the bank to get to Kluivert, but I do like Dango, and if he's going to play striker, who doesn't love an out-of-position striker?
Exactly,
So,
and as you say, chaos. It's quite fun watching.
Yeah, he is. He's a hand grenade.
Cool, right. So that's sort of the midfielders and the attackers there. And there were a couple of questions around Kirkes versus House, and obviously Kirkes is now 0.5 million more expensive.
Yeah.
Is it worth the extra 0.5? Can you see a world where you'd want to pay that for Kirkes, or do you just go for Howson?
I still think you go Kirkes, only just. Obviously, if money becomes even like a slight worry, just get Howson.
Okay.
He is nailed. Senesi's not back till the 1st of April, I think it is, which is like game week 30.
Do you reckon he comes back in? Or do you reckon Howson gets
No. Yeah. The only problem we've got with Howson is that Senesi's obviously left-footed. Dino's so two-footed anyway, it's fine. But there's obviously the right-back issue as well, with Smith out, Hill out, Araujo out, Cook's filling in. So maybe there is a world where we do actually see all three. Zaba won't move from the right centre-back. That will stay cemented. It would just be how they play around with Senesi. But I wouldn't worry at all about it. And if it does come to it, then just fix it down the line. So there's no worries about minutes. I would just edge Kirkes. I think his bonus points appeal is slightly better. I don't know what his baseline is, but...
they're actually both incredibly good for baseline. So you're probably likely to get bonus from the pair of them.
And just on Howson, he makes a lot of runs. Don't want to get too football techie here because I'm not, but into sort of like the inside third on the left-hand side of the pitch. He like literally did a step over around Murillo, and like Christie like nicked it off him as he took the touch. And so he's almost like getting to the byline from left centre back. And he does have that license to do it because Tyler Adams has been sitting there going, off you go. So he does like genuinely get forward, and obviously he's pretty famous for his goal for Roma that he just like twats in from 30 yards. So yeah, I mean, and you'll enjoy watching both basically.
Okay, perfect. So probably Kirkes if you've got the money, but Howson's not a bad shout at 4 points.
Also, Howson might go up front if we're like losing 2-1. So there is that carnage that can come under.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
Cool. And then the only other final thing, this was more of a question from me, but Kepa's going very under the radar considering his price. Is he absolutely categorically nailed on? Because I know in the past the Bournemouth keeper has been a bit touch and go.
Spoiling my transfer plans. So I've got Sanchez and Verbruggen who stink. Sanchez might become Jorgensen because of how bad he is. I'm not transferring in Jorgensen, but Kepa, I looked at 25 to 29 because I've had some psychological bias here of plan continuation. And I've earmarked wildcard 30, but I am sort of trying to stay flexible until 25. We've got more news. But I looked at 25 to 29 and I was like, who are the best keepers? And it was Kepa. And I was like, no, I don't want to bring Bournemouth players in for this. And now everyone's on the hype train. So Kepa could be someone that I bring in just because of how stinky my keepers are, and they play each other in 25. Probably be a 0-0, and I'll transfer out and bring Kepa in, and Southampton will score. We know how it goes. But so yeah, Kepa is an option. We've played Chelsea twice now, so there's no worry about the loan coming in for Travers to play. Travers was earmarked to go to Borough on loan, but we said that Dennis is injured. He is actually injured. So we're now keeping Travers. But Kepa's been really good recently. You could say Travers was at fault for the James free kick goal. I think you got some salty glasses on if you're doing that for Travers. So, but no, Kepa should be nailed.
Okay, perfect. So if someone were on a wild card right now, and they'd obviously have 3 Bournemouth, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Which 3 Bournemouth would you have, taking everything into account? I know you've maybe not built a wild card, but just off the top of your head, which would be the 3? Would you go triple attack, double attack, 1 defender, go Kepa and House, and which way would you lean?
I'd love to see sort of like how the rotations work defensively, but I would go Clivert. I would love to lob Dango in there as an 8th midfielder. And then I probably would go Kirkes, but like if you found a rotation for keepers, because our fixtures do extend beyond game week 30. It's Ipswich, West Ham, Palace, United. So, you know, you can keep Kepa for the next 10 weeks and then hit the wild card in 35 maybe, depending on which way round you do it. But yeah, I'd probably go Kirkes just for the excitement, and those sort of price ranges with Robinson, Munoz, Hall. There's a lot you could pivot to if Kirkes something happened to him, but Kepa and Semenyo are both equally good picks. Like I said earlier, you could have 5 Bournemouth players.
Perfect. We wish we could. Is there anything we've missed on Bournemouth? Do you feel like we've covered? Is there anything else in your notes that you wanted to bring up?
Just probably one thing that Prass asked on Twitter yesterday, and how Tavernier coming back might affect anyone's minutes. Like I said, the next 2 to 3 weeks, I think Tavernier will stay on the bench, just with how good we've been with this front 4. Tavernier can play right 10 and on the left as well. So he's very flexible. It could push Semenyo onto the right and Brooks to the bench. But for the time being, it doesn't affect them. I still think Brooks would be the one to sit out for Tavernier to come back in. That's nothing against Brooks and how he's performed. He is quite injury prone. He's had a lot of minutes, considering he's had not a lot of minutes at the start of the season. So, yeah. And then I looked at the minutes. Semenyo's had like 1,900, Clive at 1,400, Dango 1,100. So Dango's fresh, and Clive does get his rest. He does get 70-minute games. Semenyo's an athletic monster. But for the time being, I would say your 3 FPL guys are nailed. So I don't think it will affect their minutes too much with Tavernier coming back.
Maybe just a further justification for Semenyo, I guess, is just that in 4 weeks it could be...
No one matters. Exactly. Even if Sinisterra is back, Alex Scott's back, Unau's ACL, so he's not coming back. But
yeah, exactly. Or if you did randomly sign someone on loan, Semenyo is still...
Semenyo is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, that was good. I feel like people will find that very helpful. And obviously
we
this
had the
week...
Mateta podcast last week. It's not a Cherries podcast.
I know, exactly. Obviously this week they play Liverpool.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily expecting to go huge, but I think the fixture run from next week with Southampton is great. Just in terms of that Liverpool game, try not to be biased, but how do you see it going? High scoring, low scoring? Do you think you'll frustrate them defensively, or do you think you'll go after them? Like, know the way Areola sets up that team. How do you think he'll set up the team?
We will go after them, but it's really tricky because both defences are very strong. We will see Semenyo versus Trent, so that was going to be interesting. Semenyo will track back on him as well, but there might be moments where we can catch them out. I would love to say it'll be a high-scoring game because I think it's going to be a great watch regardless, even if it is like a 1-0 to Liverpool, 1-1 sort of thing. I do think it'll be a great watch. I see maybe a 2-1 Liverpool, but I think it will be a good watch in terms of Bournemouth will give as good as they're going to get. Will there be opportunities for Salah to attack on Kirk's playing up left wing? Then yeah, probably. But I also wouldn't be surprised to see 1-0 Liverpool with like a McAllister goal or something stupid like that. So yeah, I want to say from a neutral point of view, there'll be goals and it'll be entertaining. 2-2 would be my Bournemouth bias prediction.
I reckon Howson's going to pocket Salah every time he tries coming inside. That's my guess.
Yeah, he can pocket anyone. Pele could come back and Howson could do that.
Right, cool. Right, we'll stop with the Bournemouth bias now. Moving on to the other two. We're just doing this in order from the games of 23, but the next two games are the Everton game and the Liverpool game. So we're going to discuss the two doubling teams. So obviously the result was Brighton 0, Everton 1. In terms of Everton's fixtures now, they've obviously got the double home fixture of Leicester and Liverpool, which is pretty decent. Like if you just consider that Liverpool is a couple of bonus appearance points, maybe something more. Leicester's great. Then it's Palace, United, Brentford, Wolves, West Ham. It's actually a very nice fixture run. I think especially actually for the attackers. So it's a shame that there aren't that many good options. And obviously the good thing is they are definitely going to play in game week 29 against West Ham at home. So if you are looking at 29 thinking I might not free hit, it is going to be a blank game week. So the fact that they've got a home fixture where you'd be happy playing them, that's an advantage. The issue is, if we discuss their options, post game week 29, it's a horror run of fixtures. So it's Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, City, Chelsea. Maybe Forest at that point aren't flying as much, but you really would struggle to get 5 more difficult fixtures than that. And especially if Chelsea and City have started to stabilise a little bit more by then, it's pretty bad. So I don't feel like you're locking yourself into a wildcard 30, but you're almost leaning that way. If you start bringing in 2-3 Everton assets, you've either got to use loads of transfers post the blank, or you wildcard in 30. And by the way, wildcard in 30 looks like a very decent strategy. Calvert-Lewin obviously injured his hamstring. This was just, I mean, I feel...
Poor Andy.
Sorry, let's talk FPL, Andy, if you're watching. I do apologise. This is just classic Calvert-Lewin, right? A troll in FPL, but also can't stay fit. So for people that loaded up on him early, it's not 100% confirmed that he's out, but it's a hamstring issue. So let's say that he is. And Ndiaye now becomes a serious option.
Yeah.
He took the penalty, obviously, in the... I don't know why. He took the penalty in the absence of Calvert-Lewin. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's where it pretty much stops for me in terms of what I can say that's good about Ndiaye. He's a brilliant footballer, but his data, when I say horrific, I can't put into words how bad his data is. Like 0.12 XG per 90, which means on average, if he finishes roughly in line with his XG, it'll get you a goal every 8 or 9 games. That's so bad. And I know Moyes coming in, it might make him slightly more attacking, but we've not even necessarily seen that. outside of the penalty, he didn't have a shot. I think he had maybe one shot and it was 0.03 XG or something like that. So you are bringing in a player that isn't overly attacking, playing in a team that doesn't score lots of goals with okay fixtures, but he is on penalties. I will just note, 2 or 3 Everton journalists said that Ndiaye actually came off with an injury.
Yeah, I did see you tweet about that.
So I haven't seen anything beyond that. He's not flagged in the game. And I was just, as you were finishing up on Bournemouth, I was searching to double check I haven't missed anything. It's not really been brought up elsewhere.
Right.
But apparently he signaled to the bench and came off. Could have been cramp, could have been nothing.
Yeah.
Could have been coming off anyway. But I will just wait. Because it's not a massive issue that you have to rush.
It goes up by 0.1. I mean,
exactly.
It's gone from 5-0 to 5.1.
Like you don't have to massively rush that now. How do you feel about bringing in Iliman Ndiaye? Is that sort of transfer that you'd be willing to make? And if someone can literally only go up to like 5.5, 5.6, do you take a punt on him?
I'll be honest. So before I was trying to sort of plan some transfers, there was a world where I did João Pedro to Calvert-Lewin and Sanchez to Pickford. I could afford that. Obviously, the Calvert-Lewin injury. I then watched an FPL Raptor video and it says, I really hate Everton. Calvert-Lewin stinks. And I was like, oh,
never.
I'll go for Visser instead then. So I think I will stay clear. I don't know what it's going to take for me to go back to that route. I'm not a massive fan of Mykolenko either. I mean, would I be surprised if they get a clean sheet against Leicester? Probably not. But Leicester, I mean, surely got to take some confidence from that Tottenham win. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just struggling to do it.
My question to everyone, and I'll pose this question to you. If they didn't have the double game week, would you consider them? And the answer is probably not. Like, I don't think many people would go out and buy Ndiaye if he didn't have the double.
Yeah.
And so then my follow-up point is the double is an additional fixture of Liverpool, who are the best team in the league.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, you're buying Everton assets because they play Liverpool, basically. One extra fixture. And yes, you get a couple of extra appearance points and you're rolling the dice. In FPL, especially if you bring in a penalty taker, all it takes is one pen.
Exactly.
Maybe an open play assist, a lucky goal or something like that, and you come away with an extra 10 plus points. But really, you are going out there. Like, I'm seeing people do like Raya to Pickford, which I will discuss in a second. I don't think it's awful, but you're doing it for one extra fixture against Liverpool, which is, for me, a bit crazy. So I don't see the clamour to go out there and buy Everton assets. But at the same time, if I needed to free up money, Raya to Pickford is a great transfer. If I needed to free up money, something like Wood to Ndiaye to allow an upgrade to Mbeumo in midfield, again, it's a fine transfer. But just buying Everton for the sake of just buying Everton, I don't love. Like, I know Praz himself went out and bought Mykolenko and Pickford. It was to fund, I think, Mbeumo in the attack and Gakpo.
Understandable.
So if it allows you to get Mbeumo and Gakpo into your team, then you absolutely can go out there and get them. Would you kind of be in line with that?
If you like guarantee that Everton win 3-0 against Leicester, then I might it could be turned there. But I would be surprised if it's just like 2-1 or 1-0. And I think it's just a bit boring. Like, it could be 15 different clubs with this same Leicester at home and Liverpool, and then we would be going there. But I know double game weeks are sparse this year, but Everton feels a bit of a stretch.
I think because of the pricing of Pickford and Mykolenko, and because of the fact they have a confirmed fixture in 29, and I'll chuck Ndiaye in there.
Justify it.
You could justify it if it frees up funds. I won't sit here and say that I think they're good transfers in for the sake of bringing in a doubler, which is rare for me. If you're new to my content, you'll see throughout the doubles, I'm a sucker for a double game week. Like, I will buy assets that I think are horrible just for the double. Even if their other fixture was like Aston Villa, I'd go, oh yeah, do you know what? But Liverpool is such a bad fixture, and it is. I think the final Merseyside derby at Goodison Park.
Yeah, that's true.
So it could be that they go massive and get like a
4-0 Everton.
It could be that they go and get a result, and maybe that is what you're doing. You're rolling the dice, but it's not for me unless you need the funds. On Beto, I know a couple of people are like, oh, DCL was out. Can we go get Beto? Firstly, he's absolute horror as well. No offense. But also, apparently they are desperate in the next few days to get a signing of some kind. Whether that be a loan or whether that be a buy. Ndiaye's minutes are looking very secure because he plays off the left. So I'll leave it there. Also, we'll just add in the Brighton-Everton game, they had 2 shots outside the penalty, which were a combined 0.07 XG. And actually, it wasn't for Ndiaye. So Ndiaye didn't have a shot. It was for Mangala and Beto. And they were both really small chances. So this wasn't a brilliant attacking display.
It was a poor watch. Did you think it was a pen? Have you seen it?
I have.
Wasn't a pen.
I'm going to say no.
I know I'm a Verbruggen owner, but it wasn't a pen.
No, it wasn't a pen. But we'll go through all the pens this week. Most of them were pens, or at least they're less slightly dubious. And even the red card as well, which we'll discuss. There are just officiating errors every single game.
Also felt that Verbruggen definitely could have got. I know it was in the corner, but it was like so slow. It was almost went in slow motion. I was a little bit annoyed.
A lot of goalkeepers are really bad at saving penalties.
Yeah.
I don't want
I just saw the 15 points and I was like, please, you need to make up for it. I benched like all his clean sheets. So just rotating goalkeeper nonsense that you advised against is bit of a bum.
Cool. Right. So on Everton, basically the only 3 I would go and get is Ndai, Pickford, Mikalenko. There's no point paying the extra, I think, for Branthwaite or Tarkovsky, even though they've got more attacking threat. Just a lot of money.
You could just hide Mikalenko as 5th defender as well, so you can get away with it there.
Cool. And
on Brighton?
On Brighton, just João Pedro.
João Pedro hole in my team.
That's what I was going to ask.
Really annoying me. He's going this week. Almost certain of it. There are a couple of other routes I could take Sarr and go like Sarr and Sanchez out, but I think it just screams take João Pedro out now, get on the Vista train for the Tottenham at home. Hopefully Van de Ven and Romero aren't playing. So that's what it looks like for me. I've also benched him for his penalty, benched him for his 2 jammy assists. So he's just really annoying me. The only return I've had from him was a 12-pointer against Bournemouth. But I played him then in game week 12 to bench Cunha. Remember that game? 16 points.
I was going to say 16 points.
Yeah. So there we go.
Okay. Yeah, he's a bit of a troll. And I guess I've just said I wouldn't go Ndai because of the horrible data, but João Pedro's data has been equally as bad.
He got to 1 XG yet in his last 10?
He's just clocked over 1 XG.
Well done, João Pedro. Well done, mate.
So in the last 9 or 10 games, he's just clocked over 1 XG. So basically, do you know what? If you want to do João Pedro to Ndai, I won't even talk about it.
It is an option, but...
Cool. Right, let's discuss the team that we're actually more interested in from an FPL perspective, which is obviously Liverpool. They beat Ipswich 4-1. The big talking point, of course, is that Gakpo 16-pointer. Yep. Well done to owners. Honestly, I've been saying all week he's the best third Liverpool asset. He had the upside that Van Dijk, Konate, Alisson probably didn't have. I mean, even if they get a goal, you need the clean sheet as well, and you need the bonus. So Gakpo always had that chance. Did I think he'd get a 16-pointer? Probably not. I mean, it's his biggest haul of the season, of course. His assist was a beautiful cross for Salah.
Yeah.
His header, was it a header?
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Very central, 6-yard
And then
box.
he got a tap in.
Yeah.
What I found very interesting is both the goals were when he switched with Luis Diaz.
Yeah.
So he was lining up largely on the left. If you look at his touch map, if you watch the highlights, he's largely on the left. But they are quite fluid.
They do change. And
Gakpo seems to have that knack of knowing when to be central, which Diaz doesn't seem to have as much.
Yeah. Just on that as well, I think looking forward to the 24 game against Bournemouth, we're probably going to have to play Cook again at right back. Now, Cook's not slow, but he's not got the speed of like a typical Premier League right back. So there might be a world where Diaz does drift a little bit further to the left to try and use his speed to get around Cook with Gakpo in the box. I'm not saying that Gakpo's a slouch himself, but there could be a world where they would target that side more so. It might then lead to a Salah at the back post. So you could see a sort of similar goal that they scored against Ipswich, similar sort of tactics. I'm no Arnie Slot there, so they probably do completely different.
Do you think people have missed the entry point for Gakpo a little bit in terms of you've missed the Ipswich fixture? I mean, I know they're going into a double and then Wolves, but they might blank in 29. Yeah. And it is 2 away games against two pretty good defences. If you've not got Gakpo already, do you just skip now or do you still think it's a fine buy?
I think if you're on double Liverpool, then the gap's definitely closed from where we said last week that if your team suits to go Gakpo. But the gap's closed from double defence to double attack this week because you've lost the Ipswich fixture. Not saying that just because Ipswich scored in the 90th minute, but I think Everton, you could see a clean sheet. Would you see 3-4 goals? Probably not. Against Bournemouth, could you see 3 goals? Okay, maybe it could be a 2-3, whatever. But they're both good defences, as we're saying. So I think, the gap's closed. But have you missed the window? Probably not.
I think I would fully agree in terms of defence looks a little bit better now.
Yeah.
Like we said, the defence was never going to go big really for the Ipswich game unless it's Trent. I still think he's a fine buy. But I do think, and I said this last week, the entry point was Ipswich.
100%.
So
I entered on Brentford and I was unlucky. But
yeah, exactly. So I think you've missed the best entry point, but you haven't missed him as a player. And I would still be very, very interested.
Yeah.
I still think he is marginally the best third Liverpool asset.
Yeah. Obviously with Jota being out, Diaz, I think Diaz will get 2 starts with the PSV game and the Plymouth game as well. I do see Darwin get minutes in that. So I think that was always the thing with me while I was confident and I had to bring Gakpo in 22 was because of Jesus, but I was confident in all of these starts and I looked in a lot of detail trying to go what would Slot do? And it just made sense that Gakpo especially and now Diaz, obviously, because of the Jota injury. But their minutes are going to be so secure. I'd be very, very surprised if they don't get 2 starts in the double.
So that leads us on to a question we had from a lot of people. If you're sat there with Luis Diaz and Chris Wood, how do you feel about Diaz to Mbeumo and Wood to Gakpo? So making the double move to get away from Diaz to get Gakpo in, but you also get Mbeumo.
I'm not a massive fan. I know, I think Diaz completely blanked, didn't he? So it's 2 points, but yeah, I'm not a massive fan. It could be the complete reversal and you'll then kick yourself for doing it. If Gakpo does it again, then okay, fine. But, there's so many scenarios, but I would personally keep Diaz, roll with it. And it might be an easier transfer in 26 rather than taking Gakpo out if he does well, but I would stick with it.
It is a bit points chasing, I'd say. Like you've lost the 16-pointer. You can't get that. Do I think Gakpo's a better option than Diaz? Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe not to use 2 transfers to just shift around your Liverpool players. Yeah. All I will say is I love Brian Mbeumo, as we'll discuss. Yeah. And so if as part of the moves you get Brian Mbeumo in, it does make me think, you know what, if you really if you're just sick and tired of Diaz, because I know some people that have just really tired of his performances, then maybe you could go there. And the thing is, I do agree with you. I think Diaz starts both in the double. Yeah. But if one of them's to miss a game,
it's him.
It's
Diaz.
And
Darwin comes in.
And especially, let's say Darwin does grab 2 goals against PSV.
Yeah.
Then you're looking at that Everton game and going, you know what, he could get a start in that one. Cool. I would agree with that. Then Trent had another ridiculously good game from an FPL perspective. I'm going to say, I know if my auntie had ball, she'd be my uncle.
18
Lots of it is, yeah. So he was obviously on, I think, like 11 points with the assist and the clean sheet. He then hits the post with a ridiculously good shot. Let's say that creeps in a couple of inches to left. And let's say Greaves doesn't score a thunder bastard header from in the final seconds. That is an 18-pointer. And again, ifs, buts, and maybes, that happens every game. But the narrative would be very different if his shot was 2 inches left and Greaves didn't score the header. I just don't understand the desire to go elsewhere other than Trent. I think even right now, I'm saying people would look elsewhere, even though you've missed the Ipswich game. I still think Trent's a brilliant buy.
The only scenario I see it's possible is if you've got such bad team value that a Trent downgrade to Konate does enable something like, I don't know, Enzo up to Mbeumo sort of thing. But it would have to be in conjunction with like 2 or 3 other transfers for the upside to be there to lose Trent. And just on Trent, obviously, because I was at the Bournemouth game, I saw the Ipswich goal come in at like 90th minute. There was part of me, I was like, please say he got subbed in the 85th minute. This would be amazing. Like 10 to 12 pointer. And then like Konate, Van Dijk, Alisson, all blank. There'd be dreamland. And obviously, I saw the disappointment.
That is one of those where getting an early sub would have been so good. We always talk about like, we don't want defenders to get subbed off early, but if it's post 60, it can actually sometimes be a good thing.
Later.
Exactly. But yeah, I think Trent's fantastic. As you say, like if you're sat there, go and look at your team value, by the way. You can do it on the website or on your app. Just go and look at your sort of team value, add up what your team value is plus the money in the bank. I'd say if it's below like 104, 103, and you're starting to move lower than that,
but
then maybe you do go for a Konate instead. But for most people, I look at my team value isn't fantastic by any means. Going for Trent's not sacrificed me elsewhere, other than I don't have a direct route from Enzo to Mbeumo. But if I did that, then I'd have 8 ridiculous attackers, which most people don't have. So yeah, I just think Trent's fantastic. One that I want to discuss because I'm seeing no one still talk about him, despite the great game again, is Szoboszlai.
Yeah, he's on my list.
Yeah, okay. So talk to me about Szoboszlai. What do you think? So 6.3 million.
I owned him game week 1 to like game week 6.
Really?
Yeah. So I went down the route of Szoboszlai and Jota to cover Salah. It didn't work. And I was late on the Salah train, hence my rank. You did the complete wrong flipperoo and but yeah, so I've owned him already this season. And I jokingly posted, let's relive it and stuff. But he took his goal well. I think what was he 0.67 XG from 4 shots. So like, fair play to him. But
he just shoots on the site.
Yeah, he does love a long shot. Yeah. His returns are very minimal, but it just you take 1 return plus the appearance points in the other game, and you suddenly look at like maybe a 12 points, and you go, great option. Who was there as an option, but I think you'd have to be really clutching at straws to go him instead of like Diaz, Gakpo, Trent, Alisson. I think there are definitely 3, probably even 5 better Liverpool assets than him. If
you were to ask me in 24 and 25 if I'd prefer Szoboszlai or Kluivert, I'd go Szoboszlai. But if you were to ask me from 25 onwards as a fresh buyer, even with the extra transfer that you obviously with the extra fixture you get in 24, but if you remove that, Kluivert's a much better option.
I would even Bournemouth hat on to say that Kluivert could actually be better than Szoboszlai from this week onwards as well. So
and because he's on penalties, he can get penalty against Liverpool.
saying all this, but we've got your differentials to go on later, and I'm going to completely U-turn. Yeah. He's a great option.
But I think that's easy to sit there and say when it's not an actual transfer in. I think when it's just like you're just picking a random player. And I would also say his minutes haven't been that secure. I know with Jones injured, they look a lot more secure. But Elliott is there.
Yeah.
And as much as for some reason he was marking Greaves, I don't know if you saw that. It was Elliott marking Greaves from the set piece. And when I say Greaves is a monster of a man, if you don't watch football, he just looks 4 times the size of Harvey Elliott. And Harvey Elliott didn't even really bother jumping. So that was fun. Brilliant. But yeah, I think as much as Jones' injury increases Szoboszlai's minutes, I wouldn't also be surprised to see a very early subbing one game, or Elliott start as the 10 potentially. So yeah, probably not for me. But if you are really struggling for funds and you want a bit of double game week action, I don't mind it. I think the only other thing to discuss on Liverpool is triple captain.
Yeah.
So your triple captain is active, but we've just sat there and discussed a 1-0 win for Everton and how good Bournemouth are.
Yep.
Is there any justification to keep it? Like, how confident are you that you're going to play it? Sort of pros and cons for each?
I'm like 90% sure that I will play it, but equally, it doesn't feel like the most optimal. But then it's right in front of you. It's right here. Salah's playing well. I know he's dipped a little bit, but like that form was always going to be very tricky to keep up. So I think, I mean, I am going to play it. I would be very surprised if I didn't. I don't even know what it would take. It would take a Salah injury risk to not play it. The one thing I actually spoke to someone on Twitter, contemplate_FPL. He's looked even further in the future than me, but he's looked at a bench boost 32. Now I know it's a single game week, but the fixtures are insane. And so there is a world where you could bench boost 32, triple captain 33, wildcard 35, assistant manager 36, 38, or flip it and go Assman 33 to 35, albeit that would be a blank. So then the free hit comes in. So it is a bit tricky, it's a bit skewed, but I haven't looked into it at all, but there's potentially other routes that are 1%ers, but all of that to be said, at least I didn't waste it on Haaland in game week 9 against Southampton.
Get out.
Yeah, so it's on my notes. Roast Ross. But yeah, no. I didn't waste it. But
do you know what? I'm going to bring up his XG. What was it? 2.33?
Yeah, you're going to keep banging that drum.
2.33 XG for a 6-pointer.
It's the worst Premier League team ever.
Disgusting. But how did you win that game 1-0 anyway?
Yeah, that's poor.
So in terms of other opportunities you might get, so if Liverpool reach the EFL Cup final, their game in 29 would be probably rearranged for 33, which would be a double for Salah of Leicester away and Villa away. So immediately you look at that and say, that's probably better than Bournemouth and Everton. But bench boost might be an option. Assistant manager might be an option. You can even free hit in a double as well. So there are a limited number of doubles, as we're saying. And in this double, you're not going to bench boost. Lots of people don't want to play assistant manager. It feels like a free double to sort of use a chip for a lot of people.
Unless you're Andy Martin waiting on another weather event to get KDB back out.
In terms of another possible, and this is really looking into the future, we could get a double game week in 36 for City, and the game they have in 36 is Southampton already in there.
Yeah.
So it could be like a Southampton and Aston Villa double for Haaland. But at that point, is Haaland fit? What are City looking like? Do they have anything to play for? Maybe they're like comfortably fourth, but they can't get any higher. So I just like, what's in front of you? Salah's still playing really well, and I know he's dropped off a little bit. Liverpool are still playing really well. You know everyone in that Liverpool team is currently fit and available. Like, it just feels like you know what's in front of you. There aren't any conflicting chips for a lot of people. I would say it's like a very, very good opportunity to play it. But I also wouldn't say, like, if someone has their triple captain, I'm like, obviously you have to play it.
Yeah.
It does feel like you could potentially decide to keep it.
Equally, if you're someone like James from Planet FPL who like bench boost week 1 or something, then and you've still got your triple captain, you could feasibly save it if it is such that you've got 2 chips that you want to play in a double, and there are 3 available. This could be the one that you miss, but just do expect Salah's EO to be 250 plus at least. Yeah, basically, if you captain and own Salah, he's still going to hurt your rank because so many triple captains will be active. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So I basically will be captaining a player in a double game week that I want to blank. Yep.
I love FPL. Right, moving on. We're going to fly through some of these games because really the main 3 teams we wanted to discuss was Bournemouth and then the 2 doublers. But there are also some really important questions, also in terms of like selling certain players as well. And that moves us on to Newcastle. 3-1 against Southampton. They did concede again, which, by the way, I'm so glad because Lewis Hall every week has
he's been doing my Latin as
battering the rank. By the way, Jan Bednarek has scored in consecutive weeks to wipe out a Forest clean sheet at 90% EO and a Newcastle clean sheet at 60% EO. He's the man. So I love him. You might not if you own the likes of Ola Reina and Lewis Hall. It was just a really decent performance again. It wasn't as dominant as we've seen in recent weeks, but Isak is just a joke.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll just be waxing lyrical over Isak. That touch, I think you said it was on Reyes, wasn't it? It was so good. And then the penalty as well was pretty clinical. Weird step, almost like he sort of went too far over it, but
you don't
not
doubt
give
he's
Isak
score.
tips.
Yeah.
No, exactly. So, and he could have had even more. And then just add on Gordon, I guess, getting his customary one return, and that was about it from him. I'm just so used to one return. Can you get double figures? No. Done it once for me in like the last 6 weeks.
He's a tease, isn't he? He's teasing us for that big score. And I'm glad he hasn't got that big score because he already hurts the rank.
Yeah, he's high.
I think the big thing for us is we don't need to sit here and say Gordon and Isak and Hall have been fantastic. It's like, do you jump off and when do you jump off potentially? So Fulham this week isn't easy. We've seen they defend very well. We'll discuss how well they defended against Man United, although I think that represents more about United at the moment. But after Fulham, it's then City, Forest, Liverpool. 3 pretty tough games in a row there. Then it's West Ham, which is a good fixture, of course. But then if they reach the EFL Cup final, which looks very likely, they then blank in 29. After that, it's great. Brentford, Leicester, United in the 3 fixtures there. But what you've then essentially got is Fulham, City, Forest, Liverpool, West Ham, blank. Is there some justification to move off like a Gordon now? Like someone doesn't have Mbeumo or they want to go for a Luis Diaz or Szoboszlai.
Yeah.
Is there some, or do you think it's sort of forcing it a little bit?
It's really tricky. In my own team, I'm looking, if again, I had to make my moves now and tell you what my moves were the future weeks. Gordon will probably come out in 25. City away is it's not actually the best exit point nowadays, but they are looking a little bit stronger. And it will sort of align nicely to Kluivert and free up money to maybe boost elsewhere in the goalkeeper department or another defender, whatever it is. But again, if you've got other fires to put out, just keep him and roll him through City. Forest at home, I mean, well, we've seen what happened there.
Yeah.
And in West Ham, again, not too bad. So I know it's Liverpool in 27, but Liverpool away, West Ham away, blank. Again, is another good exit point. So I think for Gordon, it's slightly easier. Hopefully we do see his EO come down for the sellers. But I think you're in a tricky situation to sell Isak in that time. I think he's so highly owned, we might start gaining from him now.
And the money you have tied up in him. Like if you sell him and want him back.
It's ridiculous. I would have to pay another 0.6. I got him in GAMEWEEK 12 and wildcard. 8.4 mil. And he's 9.5 now, I think.
9.5, yes. You've gained 1.1 mil on him. Yeah.
So it's like, for me, again, if you are to go through 29, he and Salah have to sit on the bench for me. And then I end up with a 4-4-2. So it's, yeah.
I can't bring myself to sell Isak at the moment, but I do think for the blank 29, there's potential to either hold him through, especially because if they blank in 29, he'll double in 33.
Exactly.
So you're going to want him back for 33. So I have a feeling Isak might be a player that we hold through the blank if they blank. Gordon, I actually don't mind selling for Mbeumo this week, but that is more because I love Mbeumo, and less so that I think that Gordon's a good sell.
Yeah.
I think what you could do is hold Gordon for Fulham at home and maybe assess how Forest and City get on. Because if City concede a few goals to Arsenal, Forest again look a little bit shaky. Then the next 2 fixtures against City and Forest, all of a sudden don't look as bad.
So price rise dependent, I've got 0.0 if I do get Visser, and then Sarr and Kluivert are the same price. So I could do that, but I think Kluivert probably will get another rise. It might be that I'd have to move on like Saturday to go and do it in advance. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind the Gordon sale. I think Hall is actually someone who you could keep more so than Gordon, just because you could tuck him away a little
especially
bit.
with what at a cheaper price. I know some people want them like 4.4.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, you've got almost $1 million caught up in him. Yeah. But I think if you bought Lewis Hall recently, at like 5.1, 5.2, whatever it was,
easier sell
because then you can always bring him back in. But bear in mind, if Newcastle do blank in 29, which is the case if they reach the EFL Cup final, they will double in 33. So don't just sell all your Newcastle unless you're planning to wildcard in between the 2 games.
It's not the easiest double though. It's like Villa away and I can't remember who else. But
we are a sucker for a
Palace.
double though.
Oh, it'd be Palace, wouldn't it? It'd be
Palace and Villa. Yeah.
So it's not the easiest, but then none of the doubles are that appealing this year. But
doubles never end up. You very rarely get a double land. I think Salah one that was like Norwich and Watford once. But
no, Leeds and Norwich, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I messed that chip up. Yeah.
So, but I think normally there's at least one tricky fixture in the double.
Yeah.
Cool. A game that we have even less to say about here. I've honestly got really very little, but it was Wolves 0, Arsenal 1.
Yeah.
The big talking point is Saliba returns to the squad much earlier than we thought, and that is classic Arteta. Really, you just never know. Raya, Saliba, Gabriel picking up bonus. They're just monsters when they're all fit and available.
Yeah.
The red card. Don't upset Arsenal fans too much. How do you feel about whether it was a red card? How much you think it was or wasn't?
It probably isn't, but equally Arsenal get what they deserve. So, you know, I'm not complaining that he's got a red card, but I see all this like, oh, he's now suspended for City and then Newcastle. Grow up, honestly. But I think Raya coming back and making a few saves with 10 men, you know, speaks to his form early in the season when everyone was like, oh, he's can get these 10 pointers, and it's like, well, 10 men. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't expect a 9-pointer from Raya very often. On the red card, I got so much hate on. I made the mistake of posting about it. Yeah, I made the mistake. Early. So what I was trying to do with that tweet, if any Arsenal fans are listening or watching that saw it, I think it was a yellow card. So I tried making that very clear. But what I was trying to say is I understand why VAR haven't sent it to the monitor.
Clear and obvious.
Because, they need to see it and go, that is absolutely not a red card to bother sending. They probably viewed it and thought, oh, it's a bit harsh.
But like he scrapes a little bit. I know what he's trying. Everyone knows what he's trying to do. He's trying to take the yellow to stop the counter. But
he just mistimed his tackle.
Exactly. And so you can see a world.
As soon as the studs hit the ankle, you can understand. Again, I think he should have given a yellow.
Yeah.
And then allow VAR to intervene, especially given where it was on the pitch. But once he gives it, and whether you believe this should be the case or not, I don't believe it should be the case, but VAR are never then going to intervene. Yeah. I don't think VAR should have to see a clear and obvious error to intervene. If VAR see that, I think that's a yellow.
Go for it.
But anyway, based on the current rules, I'm not surprised. But that is a big loss for Arsenal. For them to still pick up the win, though, was massive.
Yeah, it was a good win.
And I think that'll be a massive momentum shift for Arsenal. I guess the only real thing to discuss in this game, and from an FPL perspective, is Raya. If you owned Raya, going into obviously City in 24 is not a great game, but decent fixtures after that. Do you think Raya to Pickford or Alisson makes sense for a lot of people? Or do you think if you've got Raya, you probably hold and then use transfers elsewhere?
Yeah, I'd probably hold. I also he looks likely to play in 29. So if you are on the Raya, Fabianski double up, then I don't know. I think you can probably just about keep.
I think Raya to Alisson I wouldn't do now, as we'll discuss when we move on to West Ham why. But it basically, if Alisson blanks in 29, Fabianski won't play. You've got no goalkeeper. So I think Raya to Alisson probably wouldn't do. Raya to Pickford again, I would only do if you need the money. That's basically it.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Right, done. Wolves, Arsenal. Next game, a little bit more interesting in terms of a watch.
I thought so.
But again, FPL perspective, a lot of us will just end up keeping the players and then not investing. But Man City 3, Chelsea 1. Big stand-up for me was Guardiola.
Yeah, he could have had a hat-trick in the first half. It was crazy.
So he had 3 big chances. Yeah. He had the highest non-penalty expected goals of the game with 1.13.
That's crazy.
When he's allowed to play in that left wing sort of role, and so technically gifted, I'm surprised he didn't take at least 2 of the big chances, to be honest. But it's very difficult to sell a man that's just got 3 big chances. But I feel like if I owned him, I'd sell him for Konate, Trent or Van Dijk.
Yeah, I think I still would. The clean sheet's probably not there. And you are literally then relying on attacking returns for someone so expensive. If he was a 5 mil, like your Stones or whatever, then it might be then you keep him, but it's just so much money, isn't it?
If you still had Haaland, he's just got a goal assist and 3 bonus.
Who is this one person who has Haaland still?
6 attacking returns in 5. I'm so glad that he's not cheaper and that they don't have better fixtures. Because if he was like 13 and a half and they had better fixtures, I'd be looking at my team now going, how do I get him in? But he's just still so expensive and the fixtures are so bad that I'm like, I'm just going to have to ignore it.
And with such low EO, it's like you can, and no one, we're all in the same boat, so no one's sort of worried too much.
There will become a point, probably game week 29 for that blank, where they're going to play Brighton, where we say, actually,
I'm struggling to get him, so I'm a bit conscious about it.
Yeah, and I think for 3 hitters in game week 29, he's going to be everyone's captain.
Getting to captain him is just the easy option. So. Yeah.
What about Foden? Because some people, obviously, I think he's actually reasonably owned, and a lot of people gave him that extra Chelsea game, grabs another goal.
Yeah.
Do you keep holding him, or do you think something like Foden to Mbeumo is just too easy this week?
I genuinely think you keep him. I think someone like him in a team like that, I know the fixtures are bad, but like past years, we always say like, City are fixture proof, whatever.
Yeah. They've scored a lot of goals recently, haven't they?
He's annoying me because 2 of my mini league rivals have him and they're just hurting every week. It's like one of them's come back from the dead. It was like 70, 80 points behind. Now he's like level with me. It's really, really annoying. But no, I would keep him. And I think, interestingly, from what I perceived to watch, it was a bit more of like a 4-3-3 rather than a 4-2-3-1. It felt like Foden and Mamouche were playing almost like left 10, right 10 kind of thing, with Gvardiol and Nunez on sort of the wings providing the width. There's like a front five then. I don't know whether that was actually the thing, but that's what it appeared. And so if Foden is getting a little bit more central, as we've seen previous weeks from Nunez overlapping, I think he's a fine keep.
It's one of those, similar to what I say with a lot of players, but only sell if you need the money. Because I do think Foden is at such a price that you do have to sacrifice. And I think Baker said the same thing. I think he ended up selling him. But it's like he had Foden, which meant he didn't have Trent.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you have Foden and Trent, well, then it means you probably don't have Gakpo. Do you know what I mean? Like, it gets to a point where you are then sacrificing. So as long as you don't feel like your squad's being sacrificed, I don't mind holding him. I think that's really it on City. In terms of Chelsea, Jackson got another assist, missed another big chance. Yeah. So he's got 2 assists in 3 weeks, but he hasn't scored since game week 16.
It's a long time ago.
Just sell Jackson.
I think it spoke to his confidence when Palmer played that square ball across, and you're like, just shoot. I know it wasn't a great ball, but like slide in, and that was the highest possible chance to probably get the goal there. So
that's the thing. Like even when he was missing a few game weeks ago, it looked like he was still confident. Exactly. Every week that he misses, he's shooting less and less as well. So I think he's a very, very easy sell. Yeah. I wouldn't go to Ndiaye though. I'd probably go to Gakpo. But if again, Jackson to Ndiaye affords Enzo to Mbeumo or something like that, then I absolutely love that. If like me, you do still have Enzo, bid him off.
Yeah, he's got to go.
If like me, you had Sanchez, or if like Brad, you own Sanchez.
He's so annoying. They got West Ham.
Surely he doesn't keep starting.
Did you see him for the Haaland goal? It was so bad. I don't know who the guy is. On TikTok, he's going in on him, and he's gone in on him recently. But like, this was a new level of hatred. He's like, has Jorgensen had limb surgery? Like, is it that bad? Like,
he's probably been the worst goalkeeper in the Premier League this season. He's now up to 5 errors leading to a goal.
Crazy.
That you're losing your team points almost every week at that stage. Yeah. If you've not seen Haaland, if you've not seen Haaland's goal, it maybe wasn't as bad as the howler in game week 22. But it was just, where was he going?
It's just howler after howler. I mean, why are you in the headlines so much? Like,
just do your job.
We've got Chelsea's best goalkeeper at the moment. It's like, what are you doing?
And Petrovic as well. It's like Chelsea have just
he's doing all right abroad as well, isn't he?
Like why did they go out and get Brighton's backup keeper that wasn't good enough for Brighton? Yeah. That's a worry. It was a shocking, and I don't understand why Maresca is being so stubborn with it.
Yeah.
I actually think he is genuinely a sell. And the reason I sold him last week wasn't just because of the City fixture. It's like at some point Jorgensen starts. And at the very best case scenario is he gets all of these games other than 27, which is Southampton at home.
Do you know what would be the interesting thing? Is Jorgensen takes his place and then Sanchez gets the 27 game and gets a clean sheet whilst we've all sold him.
Yeah.
For the reason we think he'd be
I think Sanchez to Pickford, Sanchez to Alisson, Sanchez to Kepa is honestly all really decent transfers. I don't love goalkeeper transfers, but Sanchez is one that I'd get rid of. Just on Palmer, 3 attacking returns in 8 games now. Yeah. By the way, 0 assists in that time. They're all 3 goals.
Which we don't mind. But
Probably
speaks to more Jackson as well as Palmer as an asset. But I just think, what else are you doing with the money? Like, you can't get Saka. Son stinks. Haaland, it's a big jump from there anyway. So
things like 4 mil, or 3.5 mil.
So I just get on with it. Everyone owns him. You'd be a brave person to not own. I know there are some, and they are probably benefiting. But again, what happens if Palmer goes nuclear one game, gets a hat trick, 4 goals, whatever it is?
This tends to be when he goes and gets like a 25 point. Whereas after a few, it's like, he's not that great.
So, again, if you want to drive down his EO and we can actually gain from him, then fine.
Everyone should sell Palmer.
Him, Wood, he's at. Yeah, so there you go. Right, podcast done.
Yeah, I think Man City's 3, Chelsea 1 was good performance from City, poor from Chelsea. City are trending in the right direction, and Chelsea are trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Like they should have been 2-0 up after 5 minutes, and it was what Maresca said. Yeah. But you weren't. So
exactly.
Get on with it.
And you've got players that aren't finishing their chances. Yeah. Another stinker of a game, really. Well, for me anyway, maybe you disagree if you're a Palace and Brentford fan, but Palace 1, Brentford 2. I'll be honest, I only watched the first 60 minutes because then I had to get to the Villa game, which I watched live, which we'll discuss, and wasn't much better. But I think it was relatively equal. Maybe Brentford just about edged it. They both had their chances. Eze's a brilliant footballer. If anything happens in the Palace games for Palace, it's going to be Eze. Yeah. Even when I actually said in the first 30 minutes, I turned to my girlfriend and said, Eze's playing pretty poor, but he was still creating. It was just because he was misplacing passes, but everything goes through him. He set up both the big chances they had. He hit the post from a free kick. Eze's a really fine hold for me.
Yeah, he's fine.
Selling.
We'll get on to other assets that are annoying me.
Mateta's fine.
Mateta's fine.
Probably his worst game in the last 4 or 5 weeks, I would say.
Yeah,
I watched it as a Mateta owner. He had one chance, actually, which was pretty decent, but he just blasted it straight at the keeper on his left foot. Okay, let's discuss Sarr. 72nd minute, he gets subbed off. Obviously, Nketiah came on for him, but then new signing Romain Esse, not Eze.
First goal.
First touch, first goal. And he can play as a right winger. So he's played as a 10 or as a right winger. I think in this game, he came on a bit more centrally, but he can shift out to the right.
Got his goal from the left. I don't know how the play unfolded.
So is Sarr a sell now?
Yeah, see, I was looking at that. The plum fixture was 28 for Ipswich, wasn't it?
Can't hold him that long, though.
But that's the thing. You got 3 weeks. But then I'm comfortable benching him this week. I benched him the previous week. And so I just look at bench. And so if I do have the transfer, there is a world where I have Gordon and Sarr out and get Clivert and Dango. So that would be very interesting.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, that would be crazy to do. But yeah, Sarr is annoying me and he is a ticking time bomb in my team. But he has become my 8th attacker. So he is in a way expendable. So if it does lend its way, I might be able to keep him through to 28. But again, with a blank coming, it's like, well, just take the hit now and get rid of him. So
yeah, and I think because Bournemouth have Southampton in 25, it's not like you're losing out on the fixtures. No. You're getting better fixtures with Bournemouth and a confirmed fixture in 29 against Brentford at home. Whereas Sarr's probably going to blank.
And now the minutes are a lot lower. We thought he was 90 back in mid-December and Eze was the one coming off and now it's completely flipped around.
Exactly. And you can say it was because he had the hamstring issue, but he should hopefully be over that by now. I don't think this was hamstring related. He
started 2 in a row now on it. So
because with the way Eze's playing and with Mateta's playing, it's difficult to sub them off first. So if you're trying to win a game, Sarr's got to be the first of the 3 to come off. So yeah. Munoz finally got his attacking return. It was an assist rather than a goal. It's been coming for such a long time now. It was mainly just brilliant work by Eze, and then it was a relatively easy assist for Munoz. He's another fine hold. I don't have an issue with keeping him. But do bear in mind, if you've got triple Newcastle, triple Palace, which
you need to
I've seen
start thinking about it,
If Newcastle reach the FL Cup final, that's 6 players you got blanking. So what you do is you either say
free hit.
As I was going to say, you either start moving them out slowly, Sarr first, then Hall, or you just say, I'm going to get free hit in 29 and actually keep all of them.
And then you're set up for double game at 33.
Exactly, because they're then double in 33. And this is where chip strategy becomes important now. Like you don't have to decide right now. But if I was sat there with 6 from Newcastle and Palace, I probably would free hit 29, bench boost 33, and then wildcard after that.
Yeah.
And that probably feels a lot easier. So start counting, start thinking. If you are wondering and thinking, I'm so confused about all of these future blanks and doubles, between game 24 and 25, we will know a lot more about those, and I'll be able to hopefully inform you as and when about when the best chips are to play. So I think that's it on Palace.
Yep.
Brentford. So Mbeumo missed the penalty. I'm so angry.
I watched it behind.
And
then I was like typing to my friend who didn't have Mbeumo. I was like, you spawny. And I was like, oh. It's been retaken. And then he's typing back exactly what I typed to him. And but I've got a bone to pick with you, Opta Sports, because you have cost me 2 points and I want those 2 points.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
I did see that.
I can't believe it. It's not even that tricky to determine.
What FPL do to decide bonus points is they take it all from Opta, right? They scrape the data from Opta.
It's not FPL's fault.
FPL don't decide this. They take it from Opta. But Opta registered him as missing a big chance in the final moments. But it was basically, it bounced off Mitchell, not Mbeumo. So Mbeumo didn't touch it. But on the first sort of angle, it looked like Mbeumo missed a big chance. So they registered a missed big chance, which removed 2 bonus points for Mbeumo, but it wasn't. And so they didn't update it until this morning, which is after the bonus points and points have been locked in. So basically, Mbeumo was technically robbed of 2 bonus, but I will say he was also very lucky to get that penalty retaken.
No.
So
he clearly broke the rules, got there first, and
It is funny though how much the narrative can change, because if he doesn't get to retake it, then we're getting a missed pen, a blank, and then I think a lot less people are looking at him. Whereas now it's like, oh, Mbeumo's inevitable, but he's fantastic, right? He's on penalties, he's on set pieces. The fixtures are really decent from this Spurs game.
And that now 29 game, although they're going to lose 5-0 probably.
Exactly. They're playing the best team in the league in 29 against Bournemouth away. But yeah, I just think, I sometimes say, like, what more do you want? And Mbeumo is literally what more do you want.
All the boxes, And
especially his price. Like I say he's like a mini Palmer, mini Salah.
He is though. Yeah.
And he doesn't even score. They don't necessarily outscore him by that many points on a normal basis. So I think Mbeumo is the 3rd best midfielder in the game after Salah and Palmer. And therefore, I think if you are sat there with Bruno, if you're sat there with Gordon, if you're sat there with someone like an Enzo Iwobi with money in the bank, you've got to be the priority transfer in.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, easy as that.
And for me, I don't have an easy route to him unless I sell Bruno, but then there's a bit of Man United bias, as I'll discuss. Wissa's an interesting one.
Yeah.
How do you feel about using Wissa to cover Mbeumo? Or are you just like, it doesn't exist, he's a separate asset, and if you want Wissa, that's fine, but don't do it to replace an Mbeumo in your team?
There will be times where obviously Wissa will outscore Mbeumo, but depends. It does feel like it's the double up. Mbeumo should be a priority. Equally, he could, but I just think it's a double up, not a Wissa instead of Mbeumo, personally.
So for the fixtures, it's Spurs, West Ham, Leicester, Everton. I feel like it's not a very long fixture run. It's not like, when we were bringing like Cunha ahead of like 12 green fixtures. Yeah. It's really only those 4 because the game in 29 isn't great. And then beyond that, they're not fantastic fixtures. Yeah. So I almost feel like if you don't go Spurs, you have to go West Ham. And even though it's Leicester after that, you're then losing the entry point as always. But Mbeumo kind of feels like he's relatively fixture proof, although he has blanked in a lot of the more difficult games this season.
Well, I took him out in 14 or 15 for Gordon and thought, Gordon's doing really well. Everyone was on like this Gordon hype train. I was like, so is Mbeumo. He's outscored him and I've sold him because of that. So, and that was when his tricky fixtures were around and he had like 1 shot in 3 games and then he got a goal and assist against Newcastle and really hurt. As I sold him for Gordon, who was benched out of nowhere and got 1 point. So that was painful. But you can, like, if there are other fires, just keep Mbeumo for his tough fixtures.
Absolutely. But we're going to move on to Spurs in a second because this week Spurs at home, I would arguably say is better than the Leicester away game in a couple of weeks. Especially because it's at home.
Yeah, as long as Van de Ven and Romero aren't back. I know they're in training, but hopefully they're not back. But Ange just seems to be... He said he played Sarr yesterday and like he shouldn't have. But then Maddison's not available at all because he was sore. I don't know if that was misquoted or whatever. I haven't seen them repel that argument. But
let's move on to Spurs then. So Van de Ven and Romero are both back in training.
Yeah.
I don't know that they'll both be rushed back for this Brentford game. You'd imagine that they are...
Not.
It'll be the Liverpool game, you'd imagine that they are trying to get them back for. But one of them could be back. You never know. We'll have to wait and see what we get from Ange. But they weren't a brilliant defence with those two fit. Exactly. So it's not like it's a bad fixture if both were suddenly back fit. I said in the notes, I've just got not sure what to say about Spurs. But our good friend FPL Focal Oscar tweeted, because he's looking to bring in Mbeumo, since the start of December, only Southampton with 9 have lost more games than Spurs, 8. Only Southampton 1 have picked up fewer points than Spurs with their 5. And only Southampton have conceded more goals than Spurs with their 28 versus Spurs 24. So basically, Spurs are categorically, since December, the second worst team in the Prem and the second worst defence in the Prem. Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. Like,
alarming.
Leicester are a weaker team than Spurs. And like I would prefer the Leicester game, but you can't look at Spurs as anything other than similar to facing a newly promoted team, unless obviously Van de Ven and Romero come back. And I say that as a United fan, we're not much better, but I think defensively, we show some signs.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas Spurs are just showing absolutely nothing. Yeah. The latest news this morning, it was tweeted like 7 a.m. by journalists, is they're going to stick with Ange, at least for the foreseeable future. Yeah. I saw that Leicester result and I was like, he's gone.
I just think they're so stubborn on Ange. But I
maybe
agree.
Maybe they know that there's no one else that they really fancy.
Like
we don't know what's going on,
and they're still going to be down there.
Exactly, and they do have an injury crisis now. The argument for Spurs fans, because I haven't seen a single Spurs fan that wants Ange to say, is that he is the reason for the injuries.
Essentially,
it is a bit surprising. Like it's just hamstring injury after hamstring injury after hamstring. And at some point, you say. But it's because you're making them press when there's no need to press. Like I love pressing teams. Like that was what we loved about Jurgen Klopp. But he pressed systematically and methodically. With Spurs, it's like there'll be just Brennan Johnson and he's pressing by himself. And it's like you're just
everything.
You're running for the sake of it at that point. So you're not much more to say. I do just want to say, because I'm not going to discuss Leicester players, but well done to Leicester. They're getting 3 points.
I think Slasic, however you want to say it, sorry if that's wrong, but he was very good. Leicester actually won the game on XG as well. I know the Vardy chance was like 0.9999.
Jackie Vardy's data recently has been so good, by the way.
Yeah, I bet it is. But I did love his celebration as well, pointing to the 1 Premier League. So it's classic Vardy. But they didn't create that much. The last 10 minutes, you saw a bit of like a frantic panic from Spurs. We need a goal. But fair play to Leicester. And I can't believe that they've gone like 7 games losing, 1 win, and then they're out of the relegation zone. It's like, how bad have Wolves and Ipswich been? But
I mean, Man United aren't far off. Anyway, moving on. Villa 1, West Ham 1. So I was at Villa Park watching this with my girlfriend, who is a Villa fan. The last game we went to Villa Park and watched was 0-0 between Villa and United. This was arguably even worse, this game. This was one of the worst games I've ever watched live. I don't think either team deserved to win particularly. It was just scrappy. It was really poor. The first 10 minutes from Villa was unreal.
Yeah,
I was watching that thinking Rodgers is in for a haul. Villa are going to win 4 or 5-0 here. And then they just lost that momentum. And they just capitulate quite often, Villa. I think any Villa fans will know that. Like you never feel comfortable if you've got a 1 or even a 2-0 lead with Villa. I think from an FPL perspective, the main thing that I noted was obviously Fabianski lost his place.
Yeah, that was about the only thing of note for West Ham.
Again, we don't know who's going to reach the final of the EFL Cup between Spurs and Liverpool. But if Liverpool do reach the final, then Alisson will, of course, blank, which means that lots of us will need our backup goalkeeper, which was Fabianski, who now doesn't play. And he had a good fixture against Everton. So what that now means, if you've got Fabianski and Alisson, and Liverpool do reach the final, you've probably got no goalkeeper, unless in the meantime, Fabianski gets his place back. I will just say Areola was not particularly great, especially with the ball at his feet, but I think Potter will probably stick with Areola now.
It's weird to bring a goalkeeper from one game and then
drop him. So I think basically if you've got Alisson and Fabianski, you're hoping, I suppose, potentially that Spurs do reach the EFL Cup final. If they do get a couple of players back from injury, you've seen crazier things in a single game. But I think probably we're just going to have to expect that Liverpool reach the final. So yeah, it would put me off buying Alisson now, I'll be honest. And I think I would assess, and I would just go for maybe a defender instead, or just go for a Cody Gakpo. And if you're looking for a goalkeeper, I'd go for Pickford. I think that's really it. Rodgers was really poor. It was probably one of his worst games this season. Didn't do much outside of that first 10 minutes.
Did have a disallowed goal.
He did.
It's a completely different narrative.
He did.
Buemo hits the post and that's done. And Rodgers is 2 yards further up the pitch.
Exactly. And again, we're just saying he's the best cheap asset in the game.
Yeah, exactly. He's still a fine key.
I've just said stop selling your bloody cheap midfielders.
Yeah.
Basically. Unless Enzo. Or maybe a Wobie. Like there are some where I'm just like, they're not as good. But
so basically, you can sell some.
Sarah,
but not Rodgers.
Enzo Wobie. But yeah, not Semenyo, not Rodgers, not Ahmad. Like don't be selling these that are just really consistently decent and get good minutes. Cool. Nothing much more to say on that. And honestly, the final game of the game week, I would say might be the worst game of football I've ever watched.
Yeah, you got your XG stats.
I've got the XG stats. Yeah. So Fulham versus United was the lowest scoring XG game of the last 2 seasons. So the combined XG from the two teams. So you can say United were poor. Fulham weren't particularly great either. I would actually say that both teams defended really well. Especially Fulham are just, and they've been good all season as well, Fulham. So Man United only accumulated 0.21 XG, which is bad. Then you realise that it was actually 0.03 from open play.
Yep. And what was 0.02 of that?
0.02 of that was a wonderful Lissandro Martinez thunder bastard. But yes, basically, both teams, I actually think Fulham this season have been lacking in the attack. Like they are bottom half of the table for XG, but they are a really solid defence.
Well, it's to that Southampton game at home. They couldn't break Southampton down.
Exactly. So I wouldn't be investing in the Fulham attack. I think if you do have Jimenez, Iwobi, Smith Rowe, they're all fine sells. Wouldn't be invested in Manchester United in general at the moment. I still think Ahmad's a great player and a great own in FPL. Like the fixtures coming up are great.
Yeah.
Leicester in blank game week 29.
Disallowed goal. It could have gone either way. There's another where Rodgers and Ahmad have come away with 10 pointers.
And I was looking at the bonus. If he'd have got that guy in the final, it's just a 10-pointer.
Yeah, so there you go.
So it's fine margins. So I think Ahmad is an absolutely fine keep. Bruno Fernandes is a bit different for me because of the price.
Yeah.
And when I'm watching, especially in this game, he played as the 8, so he wasn't even as the 10. So he's playing a deeper role.
Goal threat.
He's got low goal threat, a bit of creativity, and he will still pick up returns. But at that price, would I prefer to have Mbeumo?
Yes.
10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So I'm looking in my team this week. It break my heart, but Bruno to Mbeumo does feel like a good transfer. Yeah. So I think Ahmad is a definite keep, at least until 25, when you could move to a Bournemouth midfielder. But I would still keep Ahmad.
Yeah.
Bruno, I think you could look to sell.
He's a tough one. I did look at his fixtures, and I know what your questions are coming up, but the fixtures are okay. And then you got 27 Ipswich, 29 Leicester. So like those two,
exactly,
they feel like plum fixtures, but we know what United are like. You'd rather those be Arsenal and Liverpool. Like
this is the thing. I wouldn't try and predict Fernandez's returns.
No,
Ahmad's feels slightly more predictable in the terms that I think against weaker teams he can go pretty big.
It's also that psychological bias of I can bench 5-0.
Exactly,
8 points on it, but different.
I've actually looked at something like Bruno to Mbeumo and then Enzo to Ahmad. If I still want that United cover, just basically shifting Bruno to Ahmad and then allowing the move to Mbeumo.
So before we turned into Prime Barca in 25, it was Ahmad or a Bournemouth mid for Gordon. And I originally thought I'll go for Ahmad.
Yeah.
And now it's completely shifted, and I've got my Bournemouth hat on. So yeah.
Only other thing on that, Robinson was on an 8-pointer, and Fulham are the best defence in the league over the last 3 games, 1.6 XGC. So, like, just a really solid defence. Fixtures aren't fantastic. There is a very, very small chance of a double game week 25 for Fulham and Spurs.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the technicality of that too much, because it would require, firstly, Spurs to reach the EFL Cup final, which seems very likely. Secondly, it would require a provisional announcement that Spurs and Fulham would have a double in 25 if Spurs reach the final. And FPL don't usually have those sort of provisional announcements. And Spurs to also, I think, make the top 8 of the Europa League. So it requires like a lot to happen. And even if all of those happen, it's still not a definite double. No. But maybe just hold any Fulham, especially defenders, a little bit longer if you were maybe looking to sell.
It's that flexibility. If you can take it into 25, then go for it. Don't try and sort your chip strategy out this week.
We're going to get a lot more info between 24 and 25.
Yeah, exactly.
So now that we've discussed all of the games and obviously the teams in detail ahead of double game week 24, I've got some quick fire questions for our guests. Some of these we would have already discussed in detail, so you just need to basically re-emphasize your opinion. A lot of this is used for the socials as well. But if there is something that you want to add, that's absolutely fine. I'll say a maximum of 5 to 10 seconds per question. But if you want to just go sort of one word, that is absolutely fine as well. Are you ready?
Yep.
Cool. Question 1. Kluivert, Ouattara, or Semenyo if you can only buy one?
Kluivert.
Double Liverpool attack or double Liverpool defence?
Attack, but only just. The gap is closed.
And which attacker?
Gakpo.
Would you sell Raya to Pickford, yes or no?
No.
Triple captain Salah, use it or save it for later?
Use it.
Is it too late to sell Wood for Gakpo, or is it still viable in game week 24?
Sell him. Let's drive his EO down, please.
Perfect. Would you rather sell Bruno or Gordon to buy Mbeumo?
Gordon, just. But I would sell both to get Mbeumo. Basically, he's a priority.
And then finally, Ndai or Wissa to buy this week?
Vissa. It's my problem.
Perfect. I think that's a difficult one, because Wissa's a better asset, but a double is a double. But I think, again, if they didn't have the extra fixture of Liverpool, we're not saying Ndai or Wissa.
Leicester plus 2 points or...
Exactly. Okay. Perfect. Cool. If you are new to FPL Therapy, firstly, please do consider subscribing. Again, we're trying to hit 15,000 subscribers. If you're listening on audio, just jump over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. We basically play a little game every week with the guest where we ask them to predict 3 players below 10% that they think will perform well for the upcoming game week. So basically, select 3 differential players. I'm not going to lie. In game week 23, Luke has had an absolute stinker. And I'm sorry, Luke, if you're watching this. I love you very much. But we've got a triple blank. Mateta, Matoma, Kulusevski all blanked. Honestly, they looked so good on paper as well, especially Mateta and Kulusevski. But just wasn't the way. But... you are the first guest for a double game week.
No pressure.
So you're guaranteed to finish first at the end of the game.
Well.
And if not...
then I've done badly.
Then you've done badly. Perfect.
But
so...
give me some more caveats,
there's going to be some caveats, right? Yeah. Okay, would you like to caveat before we go through?
The options are so hard, guys. Please, actually go on the site and look at the 10% players, because there's no one. We all have brains to go and get Gakpo, Trent, Salah.
I just hear excuses.
So if you're shouting at me for not getting good Liverpool players or Everton players, they're all injured for Everton. They all suck. And then all the Liverpool players are over 10%. It's tricky, all right?
Okay. But you have to still pick 2 doublers and then 1 single game. Yeah. So we'll start with the first double. We spoke about him a lot, Ndai.
Yeah.
You can't,
it was going to be Calvert-Lewin. I'm tempted to do the double up on it for this purpose, but... okay. Yeah, we just stick with Ndai and that's that. Okay,
2.2%. He is going to be a big differential. Even if lots of people go out there and buy him, he's not going to be highly owned.
Way under.
Okay, second, Szoboszlai. Yeah. We said that he's not necessarily a great transfer, but as a one-off for this game.
Yeah, for one-off. If you're building a free hit, he still wouldn't be in. But for the purpose of this exercise, and if you were looking at the review stats of expected points per game week, then Szoboszlai is up there for the 10% owned. So I couldn't predict the future really. But.
And then the single game week player that we've not even discussed to this point, but it's a banker fixture, the lap against Southampton.
Yeah, he's going to do some throw and assists.
Oh, okay.
I see what he did there. No, I think Southampton are obviously so poor. Isak, Vissa recently. So hopefully Liam can deliver the goods.
He's going to outscore Gakpo. That's my prediction. Wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Wouldn't be surprised.
2 goals for Delap, 13 points, Gakpo 4.
That would be the dream for me. And then Alisson gets back-to-back clean sheets.
Oh, no.
Okay, so Ndiaye, Szoboszlai, Delap. Obviously, if you want to play along, let me know your 3 differentials in the comments. I think I would have Ndiaye, Szoboszlai, and then...
Third's really open. I struggle.
Because even the left-backs, you don't have Simicast.
I just wanted a bit of Southampton hatred coming through.
I probably would have gone like Branthwaite for the bullet header or Tarkov.
Yeah, I was tempted like Kanate or like someone, but I just...
Okay.
I thought I would get a single game weeker in there to make it a bit fair on the other field.
Cool, we'll see. I will roast you in the next episode, basically. I'll roast you in the next episode if they don't go particularly well. Cool, right. Just to finish off then, we've got both of our teams for GAMEWEEK24 and also our transfer plans. We'll start with your team. I'll read it out for those on audio. Best goalkeeper in the league, Robert Sanchez in goal against West Ham at home. Backline, a lot of the fixtures this week for the defenders aren't great, but you've got obviously Trent, Gabriel against City at home, and then Nico Williams against Brighton at home with Lissandro against Palace and Anderson against Newcastle on the bench. Your midfield 4, Salah with the triple captain active, Gordon against Fulham at home, and Mbeumo against Spurs at home, and Palmer against West Ham at home. Honestly, that's a brilliant midfield 4. And then obviously Ismaila Sarr on the bench, who will probably very shortly be becoming a Bournemouth midfielder. Your vice triple captain is Cody Gakpo. And then you've got Isak and João Pedro as your other 2 forwards. So I think when I look at that, the only weak spots there is Sanchez, although it's a decent fixture. So as long as he starts, it's fine. And then maybe like João Pedro against Williams, like a bit of a clash there, and João Pedro's not great. So you've got 2 free transfers, 0.8 in the bank. Is there any way you use a transfer this week? And then if not, just reiterate what your future plans are.
So pretty likely to go João Pedro to Wissa. I've got the exact funds, so I'm keeping an eye on the price changes on live FPL. And so if it does look like there's going to be movement, then I will move early. I think they're both nearing it, but they're not quite.
I was just going to have what is your would you lose any money if João Pedro drops in price? So do you need to also watch him as well?
Yeah, so I need to watch both. Wissa rose like a couple of days ago, but was fine. Obviously, took my 0.1 away, but that's the current plan, which would then give me 2 free transfers again in 25. A little bit of flexibility to reassess from Carabao Cup, and then just to see whether I want to go for keeper transfer, double midfield transfer. If the Cherries beat Liverpool like 4-0, then it would just be Gordon and Sarr out and just get every Bournemouth player possible. But
you're going to have triple midfield.
I might just want to really delete Sanchez from my team. It won't be a transfer out, it'll just be a deletion of the man. But I
don't blame you.
So there we go.
I just look, so Wissa's not even predicted to rise this week.
He should be okay.
So you should be fine. But João Pedro is predicted to fall tomorrow at the moment. Okay. So that'll be the one to watch.
Yeah.
Especially if you are looking to sell João Pedro, then maybe get that done before he falls again. Although early transfers again always come with a risk. Cool, it's a nice team.
Much to get rid of him, but
it's a nice team. I think João Pedro to Wissa and like Sarr to Cliver, along with maybe another move. That team's
it's
looking very, very strong. Cool, perfect. Right, my team, I really don't know what to do at the moment. So I've got 3 free transfers, 0.7 in the bank. I've got Alisson and Trent, so that will stay as my 2, obviously alongside Salah. My defenders this week all have awful fixtures. So I've got Gabriel against City, Munoz against United away, which I guess isn't that bad. Robinson against Newcastle away, and then Vandenberg against Spurs at home. I'm just going to play Munoz because United are a bit rubbish.
His fixtures are stinky, but they'll outscore my picks anyway because they're attacking threat.
Exactly. So Munoz with the attacking threat playing against the very blunt United attack.
Yeah.
Man United have actually been pretty poor at Old Trafford. So do you know what? It's not awful. I guess I don't like it because I've got Fernandes at the moment. So there's that bit of a clash. I've got Salah captain, not triple. So again, I'm hoping he blanks, which is crazy to say. And then my other midfielders are Fernandes against Crystal Palace at home, Rodgers against Wolves away, and Palmer against West Ham at home with Enzo Fernandez on the bench. And then my front 3 is Isak, Wood, and Mateta. I'm happy with Mateta. I'm happy with Isak. I think Wood's fine. It's not a bad fixture for him, but he's the one of the 3 I'd be most willing to sell, I think, at the moment. However, Isak and Mateta are the 2 that are probably going to blank in 29. And I don't really want a free hit. So I'd rather sell Wood, but Wood's got Ipswich away in that week. So I'm left in that tricky position. If I need to
backwards FPL model where you're like, this makes sense, but then this makes sense.
It's how much weighting I give to a future blank that we don't even know for sure at the moment.
Yeah,
but if I was to sell one of them this week to fund like Enzo to Mbeumo, it's probably Chris Wood. So one option that I have, but I'm going to be very short on funds soon, is Wood all the way down to a 4.4. So it's basically 7 attackers, and then Enzo to Mbeumo. and I just start my 7 attackers every week.
Yeah.
When you look at the 7 attackers, Isak, Mateta, Palmer, Fernandes, Salah, Mbeumo, Rodgers. It's only Rodgers that isn't ideal to start, but equally gets good minutes. He's fine.
Yeah,
so I don't really feel like, unless I had an injury, those 7 attackers are bad starting every week. But then I'm doing all of that to essentially keep Bruno Fernandes. Is Bruno Fernandes that good that it's worth losing Wood and losing an 8th attacker? Yeah. So the other really basic option is just Fernandes to Mbeumo. That would then give me a little bit more funds to then do Enzo up to Kluivert, Semenyo. I don't have to go to Dango.
Yeah.
Or I roll. I don't have to make a move this week. Fernandes against Crystal Palace at home isn't that much worse than Mbeumo against Spurs at home. But as I said, Spurs at home for me is the bank fixture. Yeah. So if I'm going to get Mbeumo, I kind of want to do it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
What would you do if that was your team? Do you think you would just sell Bruno, or do you think you would go and... Because I could even, let's say, not do... Maybe like Wood down to Ndiaye, then Gabriel down to a cheaper defender, and then Enzo. So I could do it in like a slightly more roundabout way. Or like if I do Mateta to Ndiaye, that gives me a lot more. So it's how much do I want to keep Bruno Fernandes?
You would be a brave man to sell Mateta.
Yeah, I know. The fixtures are... They're good.
It's the Everton home and Ipswich at home, isn't it? But
and I do love Jean-Philippe.
Are honking as well, but he's just going to get 9 pointers and destroy my rank. But
I could just do Wood to Wissa and just say, do you know what? I want Mbeumo, but I still get a piece of the action.
That's why you asked me about the covering.
Yeah, exactly. I still get a piece of the action, and then I get a Brentford attack. And then in the future, let's say Mbeumo smashes it again. Well, then next week I can always do just Mbeumo.
That's tricky. I don't envy your headache there.
Yeah, let us know in the comments what you would do. I think most people, in fact, I know everyone's just going to say just sell Bruno Fernandes.
Everyone loves the Wood train. So,
yeah, exactly. So maybe selling Bruno is the plan. I don't love selling Gabriel because the fixtures after City are great.
Yeah,
I don't love selling Trent. Obviously, I can't sell Trent this week.
Scored against City last time, didn't he?
Yeah, loves a header against the bigger teams.
Yeah, there you go.
And I'm not going to sell Isak at the moment. Palmer I can't sell. So really it is, do I lose one of Wood or Mateta down quite cheap to do Enzo up? Or do I do Fernandes to Mbeumo? The final thing I will say is if I do Enzo up to Mbeumo, I don't really have an easy route then to a Bournemouth midfielder who I actually really do want.
Yeah.
So I feel like Enzo to Kluivert or Ouattara, it makes so much more sense in 25. Yeah.
So if you did Fernandes to Mbeumo, you then can go Enzo to one of the Bournemouth.
Exactly. I'll have loads of money to deal with the price change.
Clear a path.
As of right now, if I don't do the Fernandes downgrade, I think I have exactly the money in the bank to go Enzo to Kluivert, or just, I think I'm 0.1 short actually. So at that point, I'm like forced to go Ouattara, Dango Ouattara, which I don't mind by the way.
No, it's fine.
But I think I would like that option opened up
to pick. Yeah, and you'll get one more week of information.
Basically, what I'm saying is Fernandes to Mbeumo is the correct thing to do.
Yeah, I think if I, again, gun to the head now, then
But I will sob if he bangs a couple of goals in.
United fan, you can take that.
This is the silver lining. And then I think if I just, like, let's say United start suddenly playing good football, which they won't, then I'll go and get Ahmad.
Pigs could fly.
Exactly. But Rodgers in a few weeks, especially if he blanks in 29, after the good fixtures, Rodgers to Ahmad ahead of the blank, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
So, guys, I think I might end up losing Fernandes this week, but that's something to think about. I've got 3 free transfers, so I have the ability to shift funds around if I want to go in a roundabout way to do it. Cool. Right, mate. That's it. We're done.
Happy days.
I think it's a slightly longer podcast. I think we're probably approaching 2 hours, but that's because we had to discuss the best team in the league, Bournemouth. But thank you very much for coming on, mate. I appreciate it.
No, pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And if you do want to find Brad more, I mean, considering you're an international cricketer, you're basically just active on FPL.
Yeah, FPL. I've got more followers on Twitter than Instagram. So more people care about my FPL than my cricket. So.
Okay, well, I'll link all of Brad's socials down below. But yeah, definitely if you want more, you said you might post a thread of some kind.
Yeah, I'll probably do something game. And then even like lineup predictions. If that's
what's the exact tag? Is it just FPL Schofield?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, at FPL Schofield. I will link it in the description. Make sure to go follow Brad as well. And you'll get plenty more insight throughout the season, not just about Bournemouth, but obviously, like I said, back-to-back 2K finishes is absolutely brilliant. So hopefully you go on a nice run now, start to the top 100K. And we'll have to do this again, especially if Bournemouth have a nice fixture run again.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please do subscribe. I really appreciate it. Hit the like button as well. I never do this, but let's hit a like target, if you're still watching, of 1,000 likes for all of this Bournemouth knowledge. And also make sure to rate 5-star if you're listening on audio. Until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.